Chapter 350. Her body suddenly changed, and Suli had to put down the Zhuji elixir for a while. While trying to suppress the pneuma that wanted to break through the unknown acupoint in her body, she calmed down and carefully sorted out the practice process. But she found no mistakes. Yes, there was no mistake at all. Why did she go to the wrong acupoint? Suli frowned tightly, gritted her teeth, and continued to suppress the pneuma. But the more she suppressed, the stronger the resistance of Black Lotus tactics was. This was a sign of being possessed by the devil. If it really broke through the acupoint, she would become a useless person and could no longer make progress. My life has just begun, and I must not stop here. Suli's eyes showed a ruthless expression. She stretched out her hand and bit her finger to draw quickly on the ground. Now she could only use the tactical matrix to forcibly seal all the cultivation in her body, and then find other solutions. But when she just drew halfway, the Black Lotus ring on her ring finger suddenly appeared on its own. A clear air came out from the rotation. It instantly broke through Suli's suppression and entered the unknown acupoint with lightning speed. Boom! A completely different and unique pneuma rose from Suli, and soon shrouded Suli's entire petite body. It was strange and beating in a rhythm different from Tao. At the same time, the clear sky above Jincheng Imperial Palace suddenly became dense with dark clouds and thunder. It was a doomsday scene. Some disciples with weaker cultivation were directly pressed to the ground, but ordinary people could not feel this pressure. This is nature's punishment? Fan Zisong, who was still exploring the Imperial Palace, stopped and looked at the dark clouds gathering in the sky in horror. Only the legendary mighty figures in nature's punishment would have nature's punishment. This small Jincheng Imperial Palace had mighty figures in nature's punishment. He couldn't help but be a little confused, and then he immediately became anxious. It was dangerous here, and he must take junior sister apprentices away immediately. In nature's punishment, there was not even a practitioner in Huashan realm in the entire Jiuzhou region, not to mention nature's punishment. Such existence was enough to destroy the entire Jiuzhou region. Boom! The thunder exploded as if the sky was roaring. The spiritual pressure immediately increased a lot, and the sound of vomiting blood could be heard in the entire Imperial Palace. Fan Zisong half knelt on the ground and panted violently. It was difficult for him to move. Finally, he could only sit in place to resist the spiritual pressure. Even though he was extremely worried about the safety of his junior sisters, wanting to return in a short period of time was utterly wishful thinking. Now, he could only think of a way to swiftly flee this place after enduring the pressure of the heavenly tribulation. Moreover, the instigator of all of this was still in a meditative state, completely unaware of the situation he was in. After the dark clouds brewed to the limit, the thumb-thick purple thunder rolled out from it. It was directly facing the treasure house where Suli was. The mummified old man, who had just come out of practice, looked at the sky in horror. He clearly sensed that this thunder that had not yet fallen was enough to destroy the entire Jincheng Imperial Palace. How could a heavenly tribulation have such a huge killing range? No, no, no! The mummified old man suddenly thought of something. He looked in the direction of the thunderbolt, and his expression was even more horrified than when he saw the thunderbolt. World-extinguishing thunderbolt! This is not a cultivator at the tribulation passing stage, but a monster that defies the heavenly Tao. There was a monster there. Was it possible that the Jincheng dynasty was hiding an evildoer that even heaven was jealous of? It's over, it's all over. No matter how powerful the evildoer is, he hasn't grown up after all. Otherwise, how could there be no movement at all? It's a pity that I just broke through and will die in this unexpected disaster. The mummified old man muttered with a pale face. He watched the first destructive thunderbolt was about to fall, but at this moment, the reincarnation mirror on Suli's wrist suddenly trembled, and a white light shot out from it, which completely wrapped Suli without leaking any pneuma. The thunderbolt brewing in the air suddenly stagnated, and suddenly there was no trend to continue to grow. Since Suli couldn't be found, the heavenly Tao naturally had no reason to send nature's punishment. It could only dissipate on its own after a rumble. Seeing this scene, Fan Zisong and other practitioners in Jiuzhou region were stunned. What's the matter? Is it possible that the mighty practitioner at the tribulation passing stage failed? The old man hiding in the depths of the ground showed a look of horror. He dodged it. He dodged it. He can even shield the mysteries of heaven. If I can follow such an evildoer. His jade-green eyes immediately lit up. Evildoers were not tolerated by the heavenly axiom, but wasn't it the same for an existence like him? If he could gain the approval of that evildoer, perhaps his future would undergo earth-shaking changes. But before that, I have to kill the thief who stole my treasure house first. The old man's face showed coldness, and his mummified body filled up in the blink of an eye. After a few breaths, he returned to the appearance of an ordinary old man. He waved his sleeves and disappeared, rushing to the underground treasure house. At the same time, Suli, who was in the state of selflessness, finally woke up. Looking at the spiritual power flowing slowly in the unknown acupoints in her body, instead of being possessed by the devil, her first thought was not surprise, but anger. An indescribable rage filled his heart. She had enough of the feeling of being out of control in one life after another. Black Lotus Ring, get out! Suli raised her right hand and looked at Black Lotus Ring that had no intention to come out. She smiled coldly. Are you sure that I can't do anything to you? In the last life, I was used by reincarnation mirror to death, and my soul was scattered. Everything is still vivid in my mind. Do you think that I will continue to be your tool with a fluke just because you saved my remnant soul and remained silent? The smile on Suli's face gradually became crazy, and her red lips moved slightly. She muttered to herself, I give you 3 breaths. If you don't come out and give me an explanation, you can go to the next body of evil ghost. 3. After saying the first word, Black Lotus Ring was still indifferent. Without saying a word, Suli pinched a gesture of self-explosion, and the pneuma in her body immediately changed from stable to chaotic. Under the spiritual power riot, several meridians burst in an instant, and blood beads dyed Suli's clothes red through the pores. Buzz! It was not Black Lotus Ring that responded, but reincarnation mirror, which Suli had always thought had lost its spirituality. Glancing at the mirror ring that was glowing with white light and conveying a sense of pleading, she suddenly smiled. Great! It turns out that there is a deeper hidden one. Reincarnation mirror, weren't you very arrogant in the last life? Didn't you say that you would kill me every time you opened your mouth? How come in this life you are reduced to begging me? Anyway, you are an ancient treasure. Where is your face? Reincarnation mirror suddenly trembled violently, more violently than when it protected Suli just now. If it could speak now, it might have already scolded Suli. But now it was refined by Suli with her blood, and Suli had become its real master. If Suli died, it would inevitably disintegrate again. It was unknown how many years it would take to reunite and recover. Maybe it would be directly abandoned by the river of time and be really destroyed. In this way, it could only plead over and over again. If it could still transform into a spirit, it should burst into tears at this moment, and almost cry while hugging Suli's thigh. Suli didn't look at it again, and her eyes fell on the still empty ring finger. 2. The decisive voice came out of her mouth, and the gesture in her hands immediately changed again. A self-destructive force was transmitted, and 80% of the meridians in her body were instantly broken, and the spiritual power was running wildly. If it didn't stop, Suli would only have one end. Death by self-explosion. Black Lotus Ring trembled and finally appeared. It was afraid. The body of evil ghost. It took a lot of effort to condense Su Li's remnant soul into the body of evil ghost. How could it be easily destroyed? The lotus mark turned a circle with difficulty, and a cool pneuma came out along Su Li's meridians. After passing through the whole body, Su Li's meridians were immediately healed, and her pneuma was even stronger than before. Su Li raised her eyebrows. She didn't expect Black Lotus Ring to have such an effect. Suddenly, a childish voice sounded intermittently in the awareness sea. Don't try again. I don't have energy to save you, wait for me to sleep, to recover. Speaking of this, the voice seemed to be stuck and stopped completely. Black Lotus Ring also disappeared from the ring finger, hidden in the body and could not be sensed at all. You really don't shed tears until you see the coffin. The madness on Su Li's face was no longer, and she put away the gesture with a faint smile on her face. Just now it was just a secret method of body refining, but it was very similar to self-explosion. Oh, by the way, I forgot that you were asleep and should not hear it. When you wake up, let's have a good talk. Hearing that Su Li seemed to be muttering to herself, the mirror ring trembled slightly. It finally realized how bad Su Li's nature was. Everything just turned out to be an act. But it did not dare to doubt Su Li's determination to perish indiscriminately. At present, she was living under someone else's roof, and all hopes were pinned on Su Li. It had better be obedient. After frightening the two mysterious treasures in her body, Su Li got up and was ready to leave. Her current realm could not be defined. What would it be after the 10th hurdle of Lianqi realm? The 11th hurdle of Lianqi realm? She had never heard of it, but it didn't matter. When Black Lotus Ring woke up, everything would naturally be known. Just as she was about to turn the mechanism and reopen the stone door, suddenly there was a dull sound outside the door. Did the stone door open by itself? No. Su Li's eyes were slightly fixed, and suddenly she saw the half-drawn tactical matrix on the ground. Swish! A green light rushed into the stone room like a fleeting light and shadow. When he saw the scattered and almost stolen treasure house, his eyes immediately turned red, and he was furious. Little thief, you are courting death. He had a sense of the stone door. The stone door had only been opened once, which proved that the little thief was still in the treasure house. He immediately released his powerful divine awareness, but no matter how he explored, he could not find the slightest unusual pneuma. Is it possible that the little thief has other ways to leave? The old man was suspicious, but he denied it in the blink of an eye. Impossible! That is the tactical matrix set by me personally. Even a tactical matrix grandmaster can't leave without a sound. This person is still here. The old man's eyes were a little more cautious. The person could hide under his eyes, which proved that the cultivation of this person was not much different from his. But how could there be a practitioner in Jindan realm in a small imperial court in the secular world? He couldn't figure it out no matter how hard he thought about it. He stepped forward and explored the stone room inch by inch, not letting go of any clues. In the blink of an eye, he came to the place where Su Li meditated, but all the traces here were forcibly moved horizontally for a distance of 3 meters. Chapter 351. The green-robed elder walked to the middle of the hidden tactical matrix unconsciously, and the blood-colored lines were immediately activated and appeared. The sealing power invaded his whole body in the blink of an eye. The green-robed elder was horrified to find that his cultivation had fallen from the early stage of Jindan realm to the early stage of Zhuji realm. At the same time, Su Li's petite figure appeared from the side and looked at the elder affectionately. Her cultivation was limited, and it was the limit for her to suppress the green-robed elder by a big realm in a short time. However, the early stage of Zhuji realm, compared with the 11th hurdle of Lianqi realm, which was stronger, the green-robed elder was surprised and doubtful. Looking at Su Li, who was approaching slowly, he couldn't help but be a little confused. How could there be a little girl in Yunti realm in this place? Although he couldn't see the specific bone age, he could infer from his experience that the girl in front of him was no more than 18 years old. The means of sealing cultivation really made the green-robed elder uncertain. Even in the face of Su Li, he didn't dare to use too much tone. He just took a deep breath, raised his head and said loudly to the air, "Senior, you plotted against me and only let your junior come to see me. What do you mean?" Seeing the elder's reaction, Su Li smiled and said in a crisp and childish voice with an extremely unharmonious meaning of ridicule, "Senior? I can't afford it. There is no one else in this place." After that, she took out the universe ring from the treasure house and chuckled, "I stole your things. Why don't you do it?" The elder became more cautious and looked gloomy. "Little girl, for the sake of your elder, I won't argue with you, but don't treat me as an idiot. The tactical matrix that can fool me must be at least in the master realm. How can you, a little girl in Yunti realm, master such a realm?" Su Li smiled slightly and stretched out her right hand. Her 5 fingers were slightly spread, and 5 faint black lines appeared out of thin air between her fingers. They condensed into a complex and simple word, matrix, in the nothingness. Ordinary practitioners would feel dizzy just by looking at it. Master's mark. The elder was instantly dumbfounded. As a middle-grade matrix master, how could he not know what the word matrix meant? But the more he knew, the more he couldn't believe it. A master of matrix in Yunti realm. If it was in the past, he would never believe that these 2 words would appear on the same person. But now Su Li, who was alive and well, gave him such a shock that he even forgot to take action. Suddenly, he shuddered as he recalled the terrifying world-exterminating thunderbolt from before. Monster, wasn't it right in front of him? Recalling for a moment, he immediately realized that right below where the thunder tribulation had gathered was this underground treasury. The old man was excited. He pointed at Su Li and blurted out, You are the evildoer who caused the world-ending thunder?" Su Li was slightly stunned and puzzled. The thunder test of extinction? The ring of reincarnation mirror trembled, and a trace of thought came out to tell clearly what happened just now, with a faint intention of asking for credit. But Su Li's face instantly became gloomy, and her eyes were full of killing intent when she looked at the old man. He couldn't let anyone know that he was an evil ghost. Seeing Su Li's reaction, the elder was overjoyed and said, "Wait a minute. Little friend, we can work together." Speaking of this, the old man couldn't go on, because Su Li had already attacked him without saying a word. The old man, who put down his status and talked nicely, immediately became angry out of shame. "Damn it, I'm sincere, but you are unreasonable. Even if you are an evildoer, I don't believe that you can defeat me across the iron law of the cultivation circle." While speaking, the old man still didn't want to kill Su Li. There were too few evildoers who went against the natural law. They either died as soon as they were born, or they had already grown up and become the existence he looked up to. Now he met a young evildoer in Yunti realm. Of course, his mind was different. If he could subdue and control her in his hands when she grew up, he would definitely soar to the sky with her. It was even possible for him to reach the realm of an old ancestor in Huashan realm. Thinking of this, the anger on the old man's face disappeared, and he reached out with a smile to press his palm against Su Li's. Even if his cultivation was suppressed to the early stage of Zhuji realm, it was not something that a little Yunti realm could resist. In the next moment, the surging black spiritual power surged. The old man, who imagined that Su Li would fly backward, immediately changed his face. With a bang, he flew backward and hit the wall like a cannonball. All the protective tactical matrices on the wall immediately lit up to maintain the stability of the underground treasure house. Cough, cough, cough. Sliding down from the wall, the old man struggled to get up with blood spilling from the corner of his mouth. He kept coughing and looked at Su Li, who was walking slowly, with horror. Was she in Yunti realm? Although he underestimated the enemy, how could a Yunti realm martial artist knock away a person in the early stage of Juji realm? The green-robed old man stared with his old eyes wide open, and instantly felt that he had lived his whole life in vain. It turned out that this was an evildoer? He couldn't help but sigh. No wonder every evildoer had the potential to grow into a powerful person. It turned out that their talent was so terrible from the beginning. Yunti realm was comparable to Juji realm. Wouldn't it be possible to reach Jindan realm after a little practice? He had never seen other young evildoers with his own eyes. After Suli made a move, he was immediately led astray. But he didn't know that the evildoer in front of him was completely different from the ordinary evildoers who made the heaven jealous. Seeing the green-robed old man in a daze and completely unguarded, Suli stopped and frowned. She didn't take the opportunity to make a move. In other words, she couldn't make a move. Just now, when she struck out with her palm, she immediately felt a sense of danger, causing her hair to stand on end. She couldn't make a move again, at least not in this place. Although nature's punishment faded away, the natural law had noticed her. If she exposed her pneuma again and was locked, it was unknown whether she could escape. So, she could only change the method. She flicked her hand in the nothingness repeatedly, and a shadow of the word slave gradually emerged. When the green-robed old man came to his senses and saw it, his pupils immediately shrank. Slave seal. If he accepted it, he would be Su Li's slave for a lifetime. He couldn't have the slightest rebellious thought. Otherwise, he would turn into a pool of blood and his soul would scatter. The old man struggled to escape, but his body froze as soon as he moved. He forgot that he was still in the early stage of Juji realm at this moment. He was not Su Li's opponent at all. He couldn't escape and he didn't want to die. He could only. You are familiar with tactical matrix, so you should know what this is. Su Li secretly took a breath. It was not easy for her to condense the slave seal now. There are two ways in front of you. One is, I accept. Before Su Li finished her words, the green-robed old man had already opened his awareness and took the slave seal in. After absorbing the information of the slave seal, he established a connection with Su Li. His eyes were full of respect when he looked at Su Li. He stood up and bowed to serve her. Su Li looked slightly surprised. It was the first time for her to see a practitioner so active in recognizing a master. Moreover, the old man's real cultivation was in Jindan realm, which was much higher than hers now. Seeming to see Su Li's doubts, the old man smiled embarrassedly. Master, speaking of which, my identity can't be exposed to the public. It may be a good way for me to follow an evildoer. Su Li nodded slightly. Knowing the existence of evildoers, and being able to distinguish the thunder punishment and the destruction of the world, it could be seen that the old man's background was not simple. What's your name? Su Li walked out as she spoke, and the green-robed old man immediately followed her. Master, my name is Lvu, and I am a practitioner of Guyo region. Su Li stopped slightly and raised her eyebrows. Guyo region? The home of ghost practitioners. Lvu didn't expect that Su Li had heard of Guyo region, so he didn't dare to lie and said, exactly. To be honest, I am also a ghost practitioner. But the practitioners of Jiuzhou region, are not very friendly to ghost practitioners. So, I disguise myself with a secret method. Even if I fight, I won't reveal any flaws. Even if she fought, she wouldn't reveal any flaws? Su Li suddenly had an idea. She just leaked her pneuma to attract the peeping of the magic blade. If she could perfectly cover the movement of fighting, do you still have the secret method? Of course. Lvu took out a jade slip, engraved the secret method on it, and gave it to Su Li. Su Li took it and didn't look at it carefully with her psychic awareness. She just nodded and said, I accept it, and I have taken away many treasures in your treasure house that are useful to me. I will compensate you later. Lvu thought it was a test, and immediately panicked. He waved his hand and said, "What are you talking about, master? All my things belong to you. There is no reason not to return them." Suli shook her head and said no more. She had her principles. If Lvu didn't recognize her as his master, she wouldn't feel the slightest burden no matter how many things she robbed. But now that he had become one of them, she certainly had to change her approach. After they came out of the well together, Suli spread out her psychic awareness. Seeing that Fan Zisong hadn't returned to Consort Ling, she immediately breathed a sigh of relief and quickly said, "Give me your carrier rune." Lvu didn't dare to ask the reason, and immediately took out his own carrier rune and gave it to Suli. Suli put it away and left without saying anything. "If you have nothing else to do, go to Huajian's sect and find a place to stay. I will find you if I need anything." "Yes, master." After Suli left, Lvu returned to the underground treasure house and put everything in the universe ring. Because of the secret method, the things he had affected the secret method, so he built this treasure house here. He didn't expect that there would be one more master because of it. Huajian sect, I have heard of it. It seems to be a small sect. It's reasonable for master to hide there in order not to attract attention. As the thought flashed in his mind, Lvu destroyed the treasure house and went straight to the cave where he practiced in isolation. To be on the safe side, he couldn't leave any trace there. While observing Fan Zisong's route, Suli quickly shuttled in the palace with her body movement. It seemed that her speed was several times faster than Fan Zisong's. After breaking through this weird level, there is indeed something magical. My speed now is much faster than that of practitioners in Juji realm. When Black Lotus Ring wakes up, I must ask it clearly. With such a body movement, it only took Suli dozens of breaths to return to the old palace. Consort Ling and Mammy Hui looked over, and their eyes immediately brightened. Chapter 352. Mammy Hui stepped forward and said anxiously, "I don't know why the princess and the commander suddenly fainted just now. Her Majesty and I were so worried." When Suli saw the two people lying on the carpet, her eyes flashed. She quickly walked to them and fell down. Her eyes were closed, and her expression was no different from that of Jin Ing and Jin Ing. Consort Ling and Mammy Hui were dumbfounded. Why did the little fairy faint as soon as she came back? But at this moment, footsteps came from outside the door. Consort Ling could occupy a place in the palace, so she was naturally smart and quick-witted. She reacted quickly and pulled Mammy Hui, who had not yet figured out the situation, aside. Then she stepped forward and naturally showed anxiety and worry on her face. Within half a breath, Fan Zisong appeared in front of the door. Seeing Consort Ling, he anxiously said the same words as Mammy Hui just said. He quickly entered the room to check on the three of them. Then, he heaved a sigh of relief and said, "The three of them are still weak. They were only knocked unconscious by the residual power. They will wake up on their own after a while." "That's good." Consort Ling breathed a sigh of relief and quietly glanced at Suli, who didn't show any flaws. She originally thought that her daughter overestimated this woman, but the reality obviously slapped her hard. Putting aside who the real savior was, just this deep and meticulous scheming was not something an ordinary person could compare to. How can a 14-year-old child be so shrewd? Consort Ling couldn't figure it out, but obviously no one could give her an answer to her doubts. After Fan Zisong passed the spiritual power in turn, the three of them woke up after a while. Suli opened her eyes and saw Fan Zisong saying with a dignified face, "As you can see, the heavenly tribulation has appeared, and the imperial palace is in great danger. Even I can't deal with it. There's no time to lose. Let's leave the palace first and think of a way." He wasn't sure if the lightning tribulation dissipated on its own because of the senior's trick or because the senior had failed to transcend the tribulation. However, for the sake of everyone's safety, he couldn't gamble. Consort Ling's face turned pale when she heard the words, then, "His Majesty, I don't care anymore. Fan Zisong shook his head. Unless we can find him and take him out now, we will die if we continue to stay here. From the beginning to the end, he only cared about his 2 junior sisters. The others were not worth his time. Consort Ling didn't expect the situation to be so serious, so she didn't dare to say more. Although she had a friendship with the Emperor, it was not as important as her daughter Jining. After getting everyone's consent, they quickly left the palace. With Fan Zisong's protection, although they encountered some obstacles on the way, they still got out of the palace safely. At the same time, Ning Wang and the Empress, who were in a courtyard outside the palace, immediately received the news. The lightning tribulation appeared above the imperial palace and then dissipated on its own? Which spy sent this back? It's ridiculous. On the bed, Lord Ning, who was bare-chested, crushed the carrier rune. He narrowed his eyes and sneered. He didn't believe it if he didn't see the thunder test with his own eyes. There had never been a thunder test in the entire Jiuzhou region, so there was no practitioner in nature's test. Jinxinghe is an arrow at the end of its flight, but I didn't expect that he still had a backup plan. We can't find him. My dear sister, what do you think we should do now? He teased softly, and the Empress, who was lying on his chest, twisted her soft waist. Her phoenix eyes were full of charm, and her voice was soft. Brother Ning has great cultivation. This kind of trifle is not a problem for you. These years, Jinxinghe's practice place has always been hidden, and he is quite proficient in tactical matrix. If we want to catch him, we need to find a tactical matrix master. As she said, she got up slightly and grabbed an intact carrier rune. She said in a slightly surprised tone, "But before that, we might as well go to see Consort Ling. She was hurt by the evil spirit and should be dead. How could she wake up?" Hearing the word, evil spirit, Lord Ning stopped smiling and said slowly, "It's a little strange that you said so. How is the evil spirit?" The Empress turned around lightly, letting her hair brush her chest. Her charming and soft voice came into his ears. "My animal control tactics is not for decoration." Lord Ning laughed, grabbed the Empress's breasts and pulled the quilt. "Then I'd like to see it." Accompanied by a sweet moan, the whole room was instantly filled with the scent of spring. Su Li and her companions left the city in a hurry under the leadership of Commander Wang. They stopped when they came to a courtyard built by the water. As they entered, Su Li introduced it. "This is the yard that the Emperor ordered to be built a few years ago. It has just been completed, and the news hasn't spread. No one should know this place." Fan Zisong nodded. As Commander Wang said, he didn't notice the pneuma of others. "Find a room to settle down first. Junior Sister Apprentice Jean and Junior Sister Apprentice Su may have suffered a lot of fright today. I'll go out and set up some precautions." After that, Fan Zisong didn't stay and left quickly. Mammy Hui immediately began to clean up the room. As Commander Wang said, the yard was very new and large, and didn't need to be packed up too much. Except for Jining, who asked to live in a room with Consort Ling, everyone else chose their own room. Su Li chose the room in the southeast corner, which was 3 rooms away from other people's rooms. Others were used to her mysteriousness and didn't stop her. Bang! As soon as she closed the door, Su Li turned around and saw a green flash in the room. Lvu, who had changed into a clean robe, appeared in the room with a respectful look. When the master left the palace, the servant naturally had to follow. "You also choose a room, and don't be found by others," Su Li ordered in a low voice and turned to the bed. "Don't bother me if there's nothing important." "Yes, madam." Lvu knew that Su Li wanted to try the secret method of concealment. Although the secret method could only be practiced by ghost practitioners, he didn't persuade her. Nothing was absolute. His master was an evildoer who could even attract the annihilation thunder. Ordinary rules couldn't be applied to her at all. If he said too much, it would only make his master unhappy, and there would be no benefit. After LVU left, Suli took out the jade slip, quietly explored it with her psychic awareness, and gradually immersed herself in it. After a long time, when Fan Zisong's voice sounded outside the room, she suddenly woke up. She got up, put away the jade slip, and opened the door. In order not to arouse Fan Zisong's suspicion, after having dinner with Consort Ling and others, Suli and Jin Ing stayed with Fan Zisong to ask about the precautions of practicing in Yunti realm, and then went back to the room. After washing, she sat on the bed. Suli took out the jade slip from the universe ring around her neck, and showed a thoughtful look. All Spirits Tactics. The name of this secret method didn't sound gloomy, but it was more like something practiced by the human clan. However, there was a hint in the general outline of the secret method that only ghosts could practice it, or it would cause unpredictable side effects. A ghost, not a ghost cultivator. Suli narrowed her eyes slightly. She had read about the origin of ghost practitioners in the classics of Yushu sect, but because she didn't care about it, her memory was a little vague. But it was undeniable that ghost practitioners were inseparable from the aristocracy. Since ghost practitioners can practice, what's the harm for me, a forbidden ghost clan, to practice it? Thinking of this, Suli recalled the whole operation route of the secret method, took a deep breath, and was about to move her hands. Suddenly, all Spirits Tactics, how can you have this kind of thing? The sudden childish voice immediately stopped Suli's movements, and her heartbeat slowed down by half a beat. But she didn't show any fluctuation on the surface. Instead, she sent a thought, "Are you awake?" The childish voice immediately smiled and praised, "Good state of mind. It seems that your hundreds of years in the reincarnation mirror are not in vain." There was a fluctuation in Suli's eyes, and she calmed down in an instant. She said in an unclear tone, "You owe me an explanation. Is this the attitude to treat your savior?" The childish voice was not afraid at all, and a trace of coldness appeared on Suli's face. "Oh, if there is not enough benefit, how can you do it? Don't talk nonsense." The childish voice didn't get angry but laughed. "You deserve to be the servant chosen by the reincarnation mirror. Your temperament is really extraordinary. Well, I wanted to wait until you reached Zhuji realm before showing up, but I didn't expect that you could trigger the legendary realm. Let me talk to you. But before that, I want to know who made the all spirits tactics in your hand?" Suli slightly pursed her lips. After a while, she whispered two words, "Ghost practitioners. How is your cultivation?" "The early stage of Jindan realm." The childish voice immediately fell into silence, and after a while, there was a sigh, but the reason for the sigh was not explained to Suli. She frowned, but at this time, the childish voice said again, "This all spirits tactics is incomplete. I have the complete all spirits tactics here. You just need to change a few places here, like this." Suli thought about it and immediately took out a piece of paper to record what the childish voice said, and then compared it. She couldn't completely believe the childish voice because she had learned a lesson not long ago. "As for your current realm, it is related to a very distant legend in the cultivation circle. It is said that in ancient times, the human clan's cultivation of Lianqi realm was not 10 hurdles, but 18 hurdles. Suli couldn't help but be shocked when she heard the words. 18 hurdles? It should be 8 hurdles more than the current Lianqi realm? It seemed that the childish voice saw through Suli's thoughts, and there was a trace of contempt in the childish voice. "Don't compare the current Lianqi realm with the ancient times. The realm you have broken through now is equivalent to the 7th hurdle at most in the ancient times." "Only the 7th hurdle?" Suli frowned fiercely. "Why is the gap between today's cultivation circle and the ancient times so big? You don't need to know this. When your cultivation is higher, you will naturally get in touch with it." The childish voice smacked his lips and continued, "You were really crazy before. You were just cheated by the boy of samsara. Is it worth it? If you take the ancient path of cultivation, it won't take long for you to grasp that small mirror. How about it? Do you want to think about it? There was a trace of expectation in the childish voice's tone, which immediately exposed a lot of things. Although Suli didn't know why the childish voice had an ancient origin and was somewhat simple, it didn't hinder her thinking. She was silent for a moment and asked, "What benefits can I get from taking the ancient path?" "Naturally, there are many benefits. First of all, you will be invincible in the same realm, and there are many. What price do I have to pay?" The childish voice was interrupted by Suli before he finished speaking. The former immediately choked and was a little dumbfounded. He hadn't finished bragging yet. Chapter 353. The price. The childish voice hesitated, as if it was thinking about what to say and what not to say. But as Suli's expression gradually became cold, it did not dare to delay, for fear that Suli would go crazy like last time, so it quickly said, "Of course there's a price. Choosing the ancient path of cultivation naturally means that the difficulty of cultivation will be much higher than ordinary methods. Moreover, every realm has its own unique test. Every time you pass a test, you'll receive a gift from the unseen." The more the childish voice said, the smoother it was, and it seemed to be endless. But Suli's expression did not ease, and she interrupted coldly, "You know that I am not talking about this. Why do you want me to say more? Tell me, if I take the ancient path of cultivation, I must need your guidance all the way. What are your conditions?" The childish voice revealed humanized embarrassment, and it became more and more depressed. In the reincarnation mirror, it took a fancy to Suli's character. Why did the girl's temperament change so much after coming out of the reincarnation mirror? Was it really stimulated by the reincarnation mirror and became more and more abnormal? Damn it, reincarnation boy, when I recover, I will not spare you. Even if you are broken, I will put you together and torture you severely. It seemed that the mirror ring hidden in Suli's sleeve had felt the emotion of the childish voice, and it trembled, hiding its pneuma more thoroughly. The childish voice thought bitterly and finally felt better. It said cautiously, "Little Suli, since you asked, I will tell you. I am not a selfish villain like reincarnation. Let me say the ugly words first. If I tell the truth, you can't abandon me." "Say it." Suli was expressionless and spat out 2 words coldly. The childish voice sighed helplessly and could only be forced to say, "For some reason, the most precious treasures of many ancient clans were destroyed or disappeared, and I was one of them. After the ghost realm was destroyed, the strength that I could exert was infinitely weakened, and finally I was so weak that I fell into a deep sleep. Even I didn't know where I was. When I woke up again, I was in the illusion of reincarnation. After seeing you, the power that escaped from your body was helpful for recovery, so I bewitched the aristocratic boy to give you the ring, and then forcibly integrated with you. Anyway, the body in the illusion had many defects, so it was not difficult for me to do it." Speaking of this, the lotus on the black lotus ring rotated slightly, as if it was quietly observing Suli's reaction. Seeing that Suli's voice was still calm, it continued worriedly, "You know what happened next. I recovered a lot of strength by absorbing the foundation that escaped from your body. After you dissipated in the reincarnation mirror, I forcibly condensed your remnant soul, opened a gap in the reincarnation mirror, and forced you into reincarnation. I should have escorted you until you were born. That way, it wouldn't have taken more than a year for you to be reborn. Unfortunately, my power was exhausted and I fell into a deep sleep halfway. Fortunately, although I wasted 1,000 years, you were still reborn successfully." There was a trace of cold sweat on the back of the child's voice. Thinking of the danger encountered in the past, it could not help but be afraid. It was rare to meet a life that could coexist with it. If Suli did not succeed in rebirth, it would fall into an endless sleep again. Suli was silent, but her expression eased a lot. At least compared with reincarnation mirror, Black Lotus ring was honest enough. As for your body of evil ghost, there was some surprise in the child's voice. I didn't cause it at all. If I could create such a taboo, why would the ghost clan be exterminated? When I realized that you were an evil ghost, I was almost scared to death. How many years has it been? Even in the ancient times, the body of evil ghost was as rare as phoenix feathers and Chelan horns. If you can make good use of your forbidden talent when you grow up, you will definitely be an existence that can sweep across the three realms. Suli fell into a long silence. The information from the child's voice is too much for her to digest. After a long time, Suli's eyes lit up, and she said softly, "What is your name?" The child's voice sighed with a trace of tiredness. "I don't know. The long sleep makes me forget a lot. I even forget my own name. I'm really ashamed. It's also a blessing for me to meet you with the body of evil ghost. Maybe I can return to my peak by relying on you. As for the name, you can help me choose another one." Suli's eyes were shining. She didn't know whether the child's voice was true or he didn't want to recall his past. But it didn't matter. What mattered was that it was really loyal to her. As long as there was this, it was enough. "There is a black lotus on your body. Let's call it Black Lotus." "It's so casual." I protest. So, the new name of the treasure of the Ghost Clan was so casually decided. Although Black Lotus was unhappy, he had to rely on Suli to live well, so he could only accept it. "I'm so sleepy. I'm still too weak. Your body of evil ghost is not complete. Maybe it's because you stayed in the reincarnation passage for too long. I'll tell you after I have a good sleep." Black Lotus yawned, and the voice retreated from the awareness sea. At the same time, the ring on his finger also drilled into the skin and disappeared. Suli took a look and took back her right hand. Her eyes were bright, and she was much less confused. With such an old guy, she finally didn't have to fumble in practice. In these 2 days, Suli's life was very regular. After dealing with Fan Zisong every day, she practiced alone. Since the last breakthrough, her pubic region was much empty. Even if she practiced with the spiritual stone of Lvu, it would take several days to fill it. According to Black Lotus, the 18th hurdle of Lianqi realm, I'm in the 7th hurdle, just in the 2nd stage. No wonder the speed of practice has declined. Suddenly, Su Li's psychic awareness shrouding over the yard saw Fan Zisong come back with a dignified face. She finally shifted her attention from practice and began to think about foreign affairs. Fan Zisong obviously encountered difficulties. In Jincheng Dynasty, besides Lvu, is there any other practitioner with good cultivation? Thinking of this, Suli took out the carrier rune and transmitted a psychic awareness. In less than a dozen breaths, Lvu appeared in the room with a sound of swish. "Master." Lvu bowed, but he was a little surprised. Compared with a few days ago, the Numa of the little master in front of him was very different. It seemed that there had been a great change in her state of mind. However, he naturally wouldn't be so tactful as to ask about these secrets. "Go and find out what difficulties Fan Zisong encountered. I've been here for a long time," Suli said indifferently. Lvu immediately nodded and was about to leave. This was the first task given to him by the master, and he must do it well. Wait. Seeing that Lvu was about to leave, Suli pushed the complete copy of All Spirits Tactics on the table forward and said with a smile, "The All Spirits Tactics you practiced is not complete. I have made up for it. Take it and have a look. It's up to you whether you want to practice it or not." Black Lotus Ring was her biggest secret. Naturally, it was not appropriate to tell Lvu who had just been recruited. So, she could only take it on herself. Lvu was stunned, and his expression suddenly became strange. But he still took the copy on the table and thanked her. He thought that the little master seemed to be a lot more impetuous after avoiding nature's punishment. So, he practiced this method and warned the master with the fact of failure. "Master is still too young. I need to guide her well. At the thought that he could guide an evildoer to grow up, Lvu suddenly felt a heavy responsibility on his shoulders, but more of a fighting spirit. He hadn't felt such an upsurge of emotion for many years since he made no progress in Jindan realm. With a smile, Lvu went back to his hiding room and took out the copy to read it carefully. After a few breaths, the look of wanting to see Su Li make a fool of herself on Lvu's face disappeared. Instead, he became serious and indulged in it. In a short time, Lvu was calculating something in spite of his sore eyes. His forehead was covered with cold sweat. An hour later, Lvu finally breathed a sigh of relief and couldn't help laughing. If he hadn't set a simple soundproof bounded domain in the room, he would have been noticed by Fan Zisong and others immediately. Ha 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 ha, I see. I finally understand. The joy of fully understanding the secret method lingered in his heart. When Lvu was about to stand up and find Su Li, he suddenly stopped breathing, and his face was full of horror. At this time, he remembered his original intention. When he thought that he wanted to beat Su Li up shamelessly, he couldn't help but feel a burning pain on his face. How could it be? How old is the master? She is only in her teens. This mental method has really been completed. The effect of hiding the pneuma has been improved more than 10 times. But this all-spirits tactics was given to Su Li by him. All the clues on the surface pointed to the only explanation. Evildoer! Lvu looked up and sighed, as if he saw the 3 views, which he had built up in the cultivation circle for 1,500 years, collapse suddenly, replaced by a beautiful figure as insurmountable as a mountain. However, with such a master, I don't need to worry about the impassibility of cultivation. No, this time the thing the master ordered must be done perfectly. Lvu's old eyes suddenly became hot, and he immediately flew away without staying. Shortly after Lvu left, a group of people suddenly appeared not far away from the yard. Their pneuma was unblocked, and they went straight to the yard. The alert tactical matrix was triggered. Fan Zisong, who frowned in the room, immediately sensed it. His face changed slightly, and he pointed at the universe ring with his finger. The science steel sword appeared in his hand, and he flew to the gate of the yard. Seeing this scene, Consort Ling showed deep worry on her face, and couldn't help but follow him. Mother, where are you going? Looking at Consort Ling's back leaving in a hurry, Jin Ing immediately followed. Commander Wang and Mammy Hui looked at each other and saw the worry in each other's eyes. Then they followed. At the same time, Su Li, who was practicing quietly in the room, suddenly opened her eyes with a cold light. This pneuma was a little familiar tap, tap, tap. After a burst of messy footsteps, Consort Ling and others rushed to the door. When they saw the scene in front of the door, their faces instantly turned pale. Senior fellow apprentice. With tears in her eyes, Jin Ing looked at Fan Zisong, who was not far away, holding a sword and covered with blood. Then she turned her eyes to the monster in front of Fan Zisong. Her scalp was numb, and her eyes were full of horror. Chapter 354. In the vast flat wilderness, the autumn and sunset added a touch of deep yellow to it, which also made the monster with dark blue skin in the center of the open space more terrifying. Is that a rat? Commander Wang looked up at the huge blue monster, which was taller than a one-story pavilion, in shock, and murmured unconsciously, "How could there be such a big rat? Good sister, I haven't seen you for a long time. How are you?" A petite voice came from behind the blue monster. Consort Ling suppressed the fear in her heart and stared at it. She immediately saw a familiar figure. She widened her eyes and said in surprise, "Lord Ning and the Empress. Wei Jing? You are in cahoots." When Wei Jing heard this, the smile on her face became a little more dangerous. "We haven't seen each other for so long, and younger sister Ling even dares to call this consort by her name. As expected of a consort that has been favored by His Majesty. You're really different from others." As she said, she turned her head and glanced at Fan Zisong, who was covered with blood, and said with a charming smile, "Is this what you rely on? Just SOSO." Seeing the killing intent flashing in her eyes, Consort Ling looked pale and was full of fear. But she still plucked up the courage to say, "Why do you have to kill me? If you want Jincheng dynasty, I can't stop you at all. At worst, I will take Ying away. He is an inherited disciple of Huajian's sect. If you kill him, you will definitely get into big trouble. Why don't we just let it go? You go your own way and we go our own way." Hearing the two words of Huajian's sect, Wei Jing's expression was slightly stagnant. Lord Ning, who had never spoken, also frowned slightly. It seemed that he was considering Consort Ling's proposal. Clang! 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 The continuous sound of metal colliding came from the center of the battle. The sharp claws of the blue monster collided with the long sword, bursting out sparks. Fan Zisong couldn't help but complain in his heart. This monster was too strong, and its speed was not affected by its size. It was still fast. Although the injuries on the surface of his body looked terrible, they were all superficial injuries. What was really serious was the force of the monster bombarding into his body, which reminded him of the pneuma he sensed when he rescued Consort Ling. The strange feeling was almost the same. He knew that if the strange pneuma continued to accumulate, he would probably end up in a coma and seriously injured like Consort Ling. At that time, no one could survive. "I've thought it through." But at this moment Wei Jing spoke. In Concubine Ling's hopeful eyes, she raised her blood-red lips. "Although Huajian's sect is powerful, if I kill all of you, who will know that I killed you?" As soon as these words came out, Consort Ling and others suddenly changed their faces, and their lips trembled, but they couldn't think of any rebuttal. Fan Zisong, who also heard the sound, couldn't help but feel desperate. Who could expect that there was such a weird monster in a desolate place like Jincheng Dynasty? Even he was no match for it. "I didn't expect that I couldn't even go to the secret realm of Shattered Spirit. Master, I have to let you down." Sensing the burst of the strange pneuma in his body, Fan Zisong blacked out. With a bitter smile, he fell down on his back. Screech! The blue monster let out a sharp and excited howl, and then slapped Fan Zisong's head with its claw, which was comparable to a cultivation weapon. Seeing that Fan Zisong's head was about to be smashed in the next moment, Jining was so anxious that she screamed subconsciously, "Junior sister apprentice? Quick, save senior brother!" What junior sister apprentice? Lord Ning and Wei Jing were stunned. Fan Zisong was the most powerful one among these people. Was there anyone else? "Are you so scared that you are talking nonsense?" Wei Jing couldn't help but feel funny. "Even if there is such a person, even your senior fellow apprentice is no match for my pet, let alone your master." Before she finished her words, she suddenly felt that Lord Ning beside her was tense. She couldn't help but turn her head to look. This made her face change dramatically, and she couldn't believe her eyes. In the field, there was a figure beside Fan Zisong. The pair of slender arms were raised and disproportionately touched with the giant claw that was about to fall. Boom! The gale immediately raged and swept away all the weeds around. Consort Ling and others were immediately unable to open their eyes because of the wind. Lord Ning protected Wei Jing behind him, but he couldn't help but step back a few steps with a dignified look. When did this woman appear? He didn't even sense it. She could tie with the evil spirit only by strength. Did it mean that he was no match for her? Thinking of this, Lord Ning immediately had a sense of absurdity in his heart. After the gale passed, Jining, who tried to see the changes in the field, immediately cheered when she saw that Fan Zisong survived and Su Li showed great power. "Great, junior sister apprentice, you are finally here." Su Li gently exhaled and suppressed a little surprise in her heart. In the horrified eyes of Lord Ning and Wei Jing, she swung hard. Boom! Then the blue monster let out a scream and was smashed into the ground. A huge mushroom cloud rose, and a dark pit suddenly appeared on the flat ground. The figure of the blue monster couldn't be seen at a glance. When did my strength become so great? Suli looked at the pit in front of her and couldn't help but feel speechless. She just wanted to test to what extent her strength could reach, so she used 50% of her strength. She didn't expect that the rat monster was so fragile. Hurry up and solve the problem in front of you. With his cultivation, he can wake up in 4 hours only by self-healing. Commander Wang was flattered and nodded. He quickly carried Fan Zisong on his back and ran to the yard. As for you, Suli looked at Consort Ling and was about to speak. Suddenly, a faint green shadow flashed in the air behind her. The horrible momentum of Jindan realm was undoubtedly revealed. Enemy, Consort Ling showed horror on her face. When she was about to remind Suli, the green shadow flashed and turned into an old man. He came to Suli's back and knelt down. He said loudly with regret, "I'm late to save you. Master, please forgive me." The second half of Consort Ling's words were immediately stuck in her throat, and she couldn't say it anymore. Suli frowned and continued to say to Consort Ling, "You take Jin Ing and others in first. I'll deal with it." "Yes, Senior." Consort Ling looked respectful and couldn't help but be careful in her words. The cultivation of the old man in front of her was obviously much higher than that of Fan Zisong, but such a person recognized Suli as his master. It was not difficult to imagine how profound Suli's origin was. Knowing too much would sometimes only bring disaster, just like Wei Jing wanted to kill her. So she did not hesitate to take Jining back to the yard, who was reluctant, and left the space for Suli and Lvu. After everyone left, the last trace of gentleness on Suli's face disappeared, and her voice gradually became cold. "Have I ever told you not to appear in front of others?" Lvu, who realized what she said, felt his heart thumping and buried his head lower. In a hurry, he forgot this matter and made 2 mistakes in a row. He really had no face to see Suli. "I know my mistake. Master, please punish me." Suli was expressionless and took Wei Jing and Jin Ing, who had fainted, to Lvu. "Find out the details of these 2 people. I want all the information from their birth to the present, no matter how big or small. Do you understand?" Lvu knew that this was a chance to make up for his mistake, so he immediately nodded and said, "This time I will never let you down." Suli nodded gently. In fact, she didn't care so much in her heart. She just needed to erase everyone's memory afterward, but she couldn't let Lvu lose his vigilance in case he made a big mistake in the future. "Take them away and show up in 2 hours. I need to give senior fellow apprentice an explanation." Lvu looked at Suli's face that had never eased, and his heart was also heavy. While thinking about the remedy, he took the 2 away. After everyone left, Suli breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Yi, who was still squatting on the ground. "Don't look at it. This kind of creature is the food of the ghost clan. Didn't I say before that your body of evil ghost had some defects? At that time, the inborn ghost energy was insufficient. If you absorb Yi, your body of evil ghost can also recover a little." Black Lotus said and taught Suli how to absorb it. For the body of evil ghost, absorbing ghost energy was a kind of eating instinct, which didn't need to be taught by anyone. But after all, she used to be a human clan and never hunted by herself. After some twists and turns, she finally absorbed Yi, which was the size of a floor, into her body. Chapter 355. After cleaning up the mess, Suli returned to her room. Black Lotus didn't continue to sleep, but asked excitedly, "How do you feel after absorbing the ghost energy?" Suli frowned and told the truth, "I don't feel anything." "No?" Black Lotus was surprised and said strangely, "I have seen the body of evil ghost. Logically speaking, no matter how weak you are, It should be more than enough for you to awaken your talent after absorbing a creature of the ghost realm who reached the Ghost King period. How could there be no reaction at all? Suli shook her head and said helplessly, "What's the benefit of lying to you?" Indeed. Black Lotus smiled embarrassedly and pondered, "It seems that your talent of evil ghost is more powerful than those I have seen before." Suli nodded gently. When she absorbed Yi Ji, she did faintly feel a special power sleeping in her body. After sensing it for a while, she estimated that it would take at least 3 Yi Ji of the same size to wake up completely. Thinking of this, Suli suddenly recalled the strange things that happened in Tieha village and couldn't help but ask, wasn't it my talent that drove mortals crazy with my blood? What kind of talent is that? Black Lotus sneered, "It's like eating poison by mistake. If they drink the blood of ordinary Ghost Clan, they can also achieve the same effect. You are weak when you were born, and the poison in your blood is not strong. It can't even kill mortals, let alone cultivators. If the body of evil ghost only has this ability, it is not a taboo. However, if your body of evil ghost is completely awakened, the power in your blood will be greatly enhanced. Maybe you can really poison practitioners to death by the poison in your blood in the future. I am really looking forward to it." Hearing Black Lotus's tone, Suli was speechless. After a while, she continued to ask, "Why did my strength suddenly increase so much? Is there anything wrong?" In terms of strength, Yi Ji had obviously reached the Jindan realm, which was the Ghost King realm mentioned by Black Lotus. However, her physical body had just reached the peak of Zhuji realm. It was unreasonable that she could crush Yi Ji. Of course, it is the benefit of breaking through the 7th hurdle of ancient Lianqi realm. Black Lotus said grumpily, "Do you think the mental method I gave is all the common stuff? That's a real top-notch cultivation technique from the ancient times. I went through a lot of trouble to steal it from Kueyu Palace." At this point, Black Lotus suddenly stopped talking. Suli blinked, and her expression was unclear. After a while, Black Lotus reappeared and asked in a low voice, You definitely didn't hear what I said just now, did you?" "No, I heard it very clearly. You stole something." Suli's tone was firm, and she didn't care about his expression at all. Black Lotus was so angry that he almost passed out. He said with grief and indignation, "How could I recognize you as my master?" After giving up on himself for a moment, Black Lotus seemed to have found a reason to comfort himself. He pulled himself together and snorted confidently, "What's wrong with stealing? To be able to steal from the Kueyu Palace is also my ability." Seeing Black Lotus desperately trying to save his image, Suli couldn't help but laugh, but she was curious about the Kueyu Palace, he mentioned. But what was certain was that this palace must have existed in the ancient cultivation period. How could Black Lotus forget his own name if he could even remember something that happened so long ago? As the thought flashed in her mind, Suli listened to Black Lotus continue to explain the origin of the mental method. "The holy method I gave you was created by the Lord of Kueyu Palace in those days. The Lord of Kueyu Palace was the real overlord. His specific cultivation realm couldn't be verified. However, the so-called mighty figures in today's cultivation circle are no different from ants in front of him. It's a blessing that you can practice the holy method left by him." After bragging for a while, Black Lotus saw Suli listening attentively. He couldn't help but wipe his cold sweat. Finally, the dark history was over. Then, he turned serious and said, "The biggest difference between the ancient holy method and the current cultivation method is that, in addition to the broader division of realms, there is a more magical thing, which is called Chuangxing Path." "Chuangxing Path," Suli murmured and repeated. This word was completely strange to her. Perhaps there was no other place in the cultivation circle of Jiuzhou region that could explain it except Black Lotus. That's right. Black Lotus unconsciously recalled, in ancient times, it was the most brilliant time of the cultivation civilization. Various schools of cultivation were in full bloom, and each had its own uniqueness. Among them, The school of Chuangxing Path was recognized at that time as a high-level school with infinite possibilities in the cultivation circle. Hearing Black Lotus's description of the ancient cultivation circle, Su Li was fascinated and really wanted to see how wonderful that era was. But at this moment, Black Lotus changed the thread of conversation and lowered his voice. However, there are very few people who can really practice the top holy method of Chuangxing Path. On the one hand, it's because of the monopoly of mental method. On the other hand, it's because the threshold of Chuangxing Path is too high. What threshold? Su Li asked. Black Lotus replied in a slightly stern tone, word by word. Only those who practice soul, body, and method can stand the test of Chuangxing Path. What is the so-called practice of soul, body, and method? In the words of the current cultivation circle, a person should practice body, method, and ghost at the same time, and each should at least reach the average level. Su Li was slightly shocked. It was known in the cultivation circle that if one practiced two schools at the same time, the combat power would be greatly increased. But except for the real favored ones, very few people could practice so much, because a person's energy was limited. If one learned too much, he would only be mixed but not refined, and even miss the opportunity to continue to rise. Anyone with a little brain would not do such a stupid thing to exchange the future for temporary strength. But now, Black Lotus actually said that he wanted to practice 3 systems at the same time. According to your talent in the previous life, it was difficult to practice 2 systems at the same time, let alone 3. But this life is different. Black Lotus laughed. What is the body of evil ghost? It is a talent that even the natural law is jealous of. After your talent is awakened, the speed of the natural growth of your soul is faster than that of ordinary ghost practitioners. The mental method I gave you is to practice both Dharma and body at the same time. So, it is a piece of cake to practice 3 systems at the same time. As long as you don't expose yourself, there will be no obstacles before passing nature's test. Speaking of this, Black Lotus couldn't wait to raise his tail and said proudly, "How about it? Little Su Li, do you finally know how great I am?" Su Li slightly raised her lips. "How is it compared with the Lord of Kueyu Palace? We are still good friends if we don't talk about this." Then, Black Lotus finally told Su Li how to open the Chuangxing Path with a dark face. After popularizing the things that she needed to pay attention to in practice, 4 hours had passed quietly. I have said all that should be said. The real practice still depends on you. The energy distributed by Yi Ji has been used up. When will he recover? Black Lotus's voice gradually faded. Don't forget to check the origin of Yi Ji. You need more ghost energy to awaken. Speaking of this, Black Lotus ring disappeared. Finally, there was silence. Su Li immediately flashed to Fan Zisong's room. At this moment, everyone was waiting in front of Fan Zisong's bed. When they saw Su Li coming, Commander Wang and Mammy Hui subconsciously stepped aside, showing a trace of respect on their faces. Su Li first checked Fan Zisong and sensed that his internal injury was almost healed. She breathed a sigh of relief and whispered, "Consort Ling, after senior fellow apprentice wakes up, you should know what to do." Consort Ling was slightly shocked when she heard this. She immediately turned her head and ordered, "You two go down first. Come out when you feel that you can come over. And you, Ing, Mom, I know what to do." Jean Ing interrupted her. Under Consort Ling's frightened gaze, she grabbed Su Li's arm and said with a smile, "I know junior sister apprentice Su best." Su Li smiled helplessly. She struggled a little and found that Jean Ing held her tightly, so she let her be. Seeing this scene, Consort Ling was surprised and delighted. After what happened just now, Su Li was obviously a synonym for mysterious and powerful in her mind. It couldn't be better that her daughter could be recognized by Consort Ling. Ahem, at this time, Fan Zisong, who was lying on the bed, suddenly frowned and coughed twice. He finally opened his eyes and woke up. He saw the gauze over the bed and was confused for a moment. Then he remembered the situation before he fell into a coma. He suddenly sat up with a shudder and was scared out of cold sweat. "Senior fellow apprentice, are you okay?" Jean Ying's voice came. Fan Zisong looked up and found that everyone was safe and sound. Now they were not in the wilderness outside the yard, but in his room. His blood-stained clothes were also changed and put aside. After a moment of silence, Fan Zisong breathed a sigh of relief. "It's good that you are all right." Consort Ling was moved, and she said sincerely, "Thank you for your help. For our safety, you really suffered a lot." Thinking of the horrible power of Yi Ji, Fan Zisong's eyes flashed with fear. He said with a wry smile, "What happened later? How did you get out of danger?" Consort Ling remembered Su Li's words at the door and said, "An old man in a green robe suddenly fell from the sky and defeated Lord Ning and others. The monster also disappeared. I don't know the specific situation, but the old senior said that he would come in a while." An old man in a green robe? Fan Zisong was slightly nervous. In the cultivation circle, when two strange practitioners met each other, they would kill each other and snatch their treasures. How could he relax? However, since his universe ring was not taken away, it meant that the old man was decent, so he didn't need to worry too much. While he was thinking, a green light suddenly flashed outside the room. LVU's figure finally appeared, and a unique pneuma of Jindan realm spread out. In order to complete Su Li's order, his pneuma naturally had to be revealed. As expected, he was a practitioner of Jindan realm. Fan Zisong's face changed slightly. He quickly got out of bed and saluted LVU. "Thank you for saving my life, senior." Chapter 356. Seeing Su Li kneeling down obediently, LVU didn't feel elated at all. Instead, he felt his scalp tingling. He moved away from Su Li uncomfortably and said quickly, "Get up. It's just a coincidence that I saved you. Don't thank me." Fan Zisong was relieved and stood up with everyone. He still said respectfully, "Senior, what are you talking about? Although it's just a casual thing for you, it's a great favor for us. If I can help you in the future, I will go through fire and water without hesitation." LVU had a strange feeling. He came to Jojo region because he was a ghost practitioner. As soon as he met the Orthodox sects, he was hunted down. He didn't expect that one day he could be respected by the Orthodox disciples. "Well, it's up to you." LVU didn't dwell too much on this issue. He vaguely told Fan Zisong the prepared explanation. Finally, he completed Su Li's order and immediately left with an excuse. Fan Zisong sighed with emotion. He didn't expect that there was such a kind person in today's cultivation circle. Since the senior is here, the crisis in the Imperial Palace should be resolved. Fan Zisong thought of nature's punishment he saw a few days ago. Now he thought of LVU's hurried look when he left. He suddenly felt that nature's punishment had something to do with the elder. Otherwise, how could there be such a high-level practitioner in such a barren place? Although nature's punishment is terrible, it doesn't come down in the end. Maybe it's not someone passing nature's punishment at all, but the birth of a treasure? Fan Zisong also felt that the sense of crisis faded away. He turned to Consort Ling and said, "It's over here. There is no great danger in the Imperial Palace. I will take my junior sisters back to the sect. What about you, Your Highness?" Consort Ling glanced at Su Li vaguely. After seeing Su Li nod slightly, she finally believed Fan Zisong's words. She looked slightly happy. "In this case, I will go back to the Imperial Palace. I won't bother you." Without Wei Jing and Lord Ning as obstacles, the power of the Imperial Court belonged to the Emperor. After the obstacles were eliminated, she would definitely become the Empress, and she would no longer be bullied by Wei Jing. Fan Zisong saw that she didn't make other excessive requests sensibly. He couldn't help but smile. That's good. I think the two junior sisters are also tired. It's better to have a rest for one night. I will send all of you back to the Imperial Palace tomorrow, and then I will leave. Su Li didn't speak, and no one refuted Fan Zisong's words. The itinerary was immediately set. When Fan Zisong closed the door to meditate alone, others went back to their rooms. When Su Li opened the door, she saw Lvu standing respectfully by the table. He had been waiting for a long time. Well done, Su Li said and went to the table to sit down. Lvu was a little relieved, but he still didn't dare to be careless. He leaned over and said, Master, I have found out what you told me before. How should I deal with the two people? Su Li's eyes flashed. Wait a minute. Tell me about the situation, especially the news about the monster. Tell me word by word. Lvu immediately told him the information he got from the soul searching. Like Prince Ning, Wei Jing was a relative of the royal family of Jincheng dynasty. But for cultivators, it was nothing special. However, they had an adventure at the age of 16. When they went to the abandoned house of Lu family in the imperial city to play, they accidentally fell into a well and found a cave there. Yi Ji and the method to control it were obtained from there. But the method to control animals could only be practiced by women. After Wei Jing got it, she immediately fell into meditation. Prince Ning, on the other hand, obtained a cultivation method and a spiritual fruit. With the effect of the spiritual fruit, his cultivation speed was far faster than Wei Jing's. In just a few years, his cultivation had surpassed Jin Qinghe, who was carefully cultivated by the royal family. With the support of strength, his ambition naturally skyrocketed. After Wei Jing became the empress, Prince Ning became more resentful of the royal family, which led to what happened today. With Yi Ji in hand, it was easy to control Jincheng dynasty. But man proposes, God disposes, and he met Su Li. In that case, I have to go to the abandoned house of Lu family. Su Li's eyes were shining and she was silent. Lvu stood quietly aside and didn't dare to disturb her. After a while, Su Li took a light breath and calmed down. You go to the abandoned house of Lu family to investigate first. If there is the blue monster, don't alert it. Come back and tell me. As for the two people, it's useless to keep them. Kill them. Yes, master. Hearing Su Li's calm tone, Lvu immediately lowered his head to hide the shock and doubt in his eyes. He originally thought that no matter what, his master was only 14 years old and was well protected by the sect. So, she must still have kindness and mercy in her heart. With this idea, he carefully searched the souls of the two people, and didn't even destroy their consciousness. But he didn't expect that his master was so cruel and merciless at such a young age. She killed people more decisively than him, an old man who had lived for thousands of years. Could it be that the little master was born to be an evildoer? What would be the end of him if he followed his master? Lvu flew away with a trace of worry. Su Li didn't notice Lvu's thoughts. Even if she knew, she wouldn't care. Some things could be seen after a long time, and there was no need to explain too much. Su Li meditated and practiced. Nothing happened all night. Early the next morning, Su Li woke up early and finished her practice. She felt that her body was filled with more spiritual power, and her eyes lit up. She had enough spiritual stones for the time being. Although her practice speed had slightly declined, according to the current situation, she could reach the peak of the 7th hurdle of ancient Lianqi realm in 5 days. I don't know if the peak of the 7th hurdle can help me compete with the early stage of Zhuji realm without using my physical strength. After all, there was a big realm between Lianqi realm and Zhuji realm. She didn't know how powerful the 18th hurdle of Lianqi realm could be. But she didn't dare to overestimate it, because it was only the 7th hurdle of ancient Lianqi realm. Su Li opened the door while thinking. She calmed down and came to Fan Zisong's room, only to find that Jining was already there. Junior sister apprentice, you are here. Fan Zisong smiled gently and looked at the two little girls with a hint of guilt in his eyes. He comforted them. I didn't expect that there would be so many accidents here. I have received a message from the master. Today we will go back to the sect. At that time, I will ask the master for elixirs to make up for the progress of your cultivation. I believe in you, senior fellow apprentice. Jining spoke first. Although she got out of danger with Su Li's secret help, it did not prevent her from having a good impression of Fan Zisong. Senior fellow apprentice did try his best. Su Li also nodded gently. After finding the treasure house of LVU, her cultivation progress did not fall behind, but improved. In addition, because of Black Lotus and Yi Ji, she had gained a lot after coming to Jincheng Dynasty. It was a worthwhile trip. As for the abandoned house of Lu family, I am afraid that I have to find a way to delay it for a while when I arrive at the Imperial City. Not long after, Consort Ling and Commander Wang arrived. It took them several hours to return to the Imperial City. As the head of the Imperial Army, Commander Wang immediately began to clean up the chaos in the Imperial Palace. Consort Ling also temporarily lived in the commander's mansion. Seeing that everything was solved perfectly, Fan Zisong was about to leave with Su Li and Jining. But at this moment, swish! A green rainbow flashed in the sky and fell in front of Fan Zisong. After the light dissipated, LVU's figure suddenly appeared. Senior. Fan Zisong was surprised, but LVU took a deep breath. There was still fear in his eyes. Without saying anything, he pulled Fan Zisong and said, "You go to the Imperial Palace with me and help me find Jin Chengha." Fan Zisong was a little confused, but he still nodded and said, "Senior, I dare not disobey your order. However, can you let me settle down the two junior sister apprentices first?" "Senior fellow apprentice, don't worry. We will live in the commander's mansion and wait for you to come back." Jining understood tacitly and said timely. She pulled Su Li to run to the commander's mansion. Fan Zisong was speechless at once. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but was taken away by LVU without saying anything. LVU comforted him from a distance, "Don't worry. It won't take you long." Not long after, LVU returned to the commander's mansion and came to Su Li with a respectful look. Jining looked at LVU, who was more powerful than senior fellow apprentice, and blinked her big bright eyes. She was not afraid, but a little curious. "Is it done?" Su Li stood up and walked to the door unhurriedly. LVU immediately followed. I asked him to search from the southeast corner of the palace inch by inch. It will take him half a day to come back. Okay. Su Li responded and turned back to Jining. "Wait for me to come back. Don't run around." Jining nodded obediently. Watching the two disappear in the air, she thought that it was really Junior Sister Apprentice's trick of luring the tiger away from the mountain. Junior Sister Apprentice, what kind of person was she? As far as she knew, no one was so mysterious and powerful. Su Li's appearance would be deeply imprinted on her soul and become the most unforgettable person in her life. However, Su Li sat on LVU's shoulder and flew all the way. After a few dozen breaths, the rapt green light dissipated, and the two stopped in front of a broken wooden door with peeling paint. This is where Lu's mansion is located. The well is in the last courtyard of the mansion. Before LVU could stop her, he saw Su Li push open the wooden door. He thought that she would be attacked inexplicably and strangely like him, but nothing happened. "What's the matter?" LVU was suddenly stunned. Could it be that the strange thing's attack was selective? Sure enough, there is a wandering Yin energy here, just like the one you absorbed in the old palace of the Imperial City. Different from the ghost energy, this energy can also restore your body of evil ghost, but it is mixed with a lot of resentment. If you can't bear it and lose your mind, it will be troublesome. Black Lotus Ring didn't appear, but the voice came into Su Li's mind. Su Li frowned and saw the dark air over the Lu house like a dark cloud. Compared with the air in the old palace, the air here was too gloomy and tyrannical. She could feel that the Een energy had an instinctive fear of her. As long as she stood here, there would be no pneuma within a radius of 15 feet. But if she took the initiative to absorb it, she was not sure. Chapter 357. LVU was a step behind Su Li in a daze, and the distance between them was more than 30 meters. The feeling of having a knife on his back immediately came to his mind. He did not dare to hesitate and quickly followed Su Li. The sense of crisis suddenly receded like a tide. It turns out that Master's physique is immune to all evils. No wonder, LVU was astonished. When he came to investigate before, he found that this place was full of evil spirit and sins. Fortunately, he was a ghost practitioner, so he could escape unscathed. If it were any other righteous practitioner with the same cultivation, he would be injured if he wanted to escape from this place. Now with the Master's protection, he certainly had no worries. But he was wrong about one thing. Su Li was not immune to all evils. In terms of the degree of evils, the body of evil ghost was the ancestor of all the evil spirits and sins in the world. Nothing was more evil than her. These evil spirits would only be absorbed if they got close to her. How could they dare to approach her? A moment later, Su Li walked into the last yard. At a glance, she saw the stone well eroded by time, and a faint desire instinctively came out of her body. Her eyes flashed. There were many things needed by the body of evil ghost. Otherwise, the body of evil ghost would not have such a big reaction. Have you ever been down the well? In the quiet environment, Su Li suddenly asked. LVU was suddenly nervous and whispered, I'm ashamed. The last time I came to the door of this house, I was stopped by a strong evil spirit. I was entangled to talk about the old days before I got away. I have never been down this well. Su Li nodded gently. She pondered for a moment and said, You go back first and calm Fan Zisong down. I'll go down and have a look. LVU was shocked. Master, you can't. This place was very evil. If Su Li died here, the slave mark in his mind would be broken and he would be buried with her. Su Li shook her head slightly. She walked to the stone well and jumped down without saying a word. Then she said, I know what I'm doing. You go back. If you don't go back, it will be difficult. LVU had no time to stop her. When he heard Su Li's words, his expression changed slightly. He did not dare to hesitate and immediately retreated to the front of Lu's mansion. His expression changed for a long time, and then he left worriedly. Su Li jumped into the well and reached the bottom after a few breaths. A damp wind blew on her face. She looked around but did not see any water. It's a little weird. Taking a deep breath, Su Li's expression remained unchanged. She walked along the pitch-dark pit at the bottom of the well. The darkness did not last long. Su Li's eyes were full of green fluorescence, like ghost fire jumping on both sides of the pit. It seems that a large number of creatures have died here. I forgot to ask LVU. Thinking of this, Su Li kept walking. Following the guidance of the phosphorescence, she walked a straight path. Suddenly, she stopped and her pupils shrank. In front of her was the end of the pit. In the huge subterranean cave, there was a skeleton leaning on the uneven stone wall. If it was an ordinary skeleton, Su Li would not be surprised, but this skeleton was a little too big. Just sitting, the head reached the top of the cave, and two dry leg bones extended from the skeleton to her feet. If this person was still, he was still alive and stood up he was at him. Young of Su of him of Su of Su. Su and ignorant to that he. Little girl, he said, he Li. Little. Li Hao Su. An Li Li. Li. Li Li. Li Li. How Ling Tu. Li? Su Li was confused, but Black Lotus's tone was a little urgent. Oh, just like your human clan has a human emperor. Don't ask so much. I will explain it to you later. Go and see if his life core is still there. Life core. She knew it was the place where the energy of Ghost Clan gathered without Black Lotus's explanation. Su Li's eyes brightened. She bypassed the leg bone and was about to enter the pit. But the moist air blew again, which made her stop. Why did you stop? Black Lotus was puzzled, but Su Li didn't answer. She frowned and suddenly thought of the details she had noticed before. The cave was obviously very dry. The cold and humid wind blew so frequently. How could there be no water? Unless everything in front of her was an illusion. Su Li's scalp was numb. She retreated to the bottom of the well in the blink of an eye. Black Lotus was about to speak again. Suddenly, a strange cry came from the cave. Squeak! In the next moment, a huge phantom suddenly appeared out of thin air. Before Su Li could see it clearly, it opened its mouth full of sharp teeth and swallowed her upper body. Nightmare? How could it be this thing? Black Lotus screamed involuntarily, but Su Li was not in the mood to listen to what he said. She stamped her feet and turned into a shadow to avoid the attack. Then she appeared behind the huge phantom and punched hard at the phantom's back. No! Black Lotus saw this scene and tried to stop it. Su Li looked slightly serious, but it was too late to withdraw her fist. She could only withdraw part of her strength. At the moment when the fist touched the body of the nightmare, the black skin of the nightmare suddenly became illusory. Su Li's fist went through it and hit the air. Illusory! Su Li staggered and lost her balance. Fortunately, she withdrew part of her strength. Otherwise, it could not be resolved by just a stagger. Squeak, squeak, squeak! The nightmare screamed angrily. Obviously, it was irritated by Su Li's punch and attacked crazily. Su Li had no choice but to keep dodging. Occasionally, she tried to counterattack, but she hit the air. The ability of the nightmare to illusory was too difficult to deal with. Black Lotus, does the nightmare have no weakness? While resisting the attack, Su Li seized the time to ask. This nightmare was stronger than her. Even if she called Lvu, he might not be its opponent. She could only rely on herself to find a way. Black Lotus sighed bitterly. Nightmare is the most difficult creature to deal with in the ghost realm, and it is very rare. How could it appear here? He couldn't figure it out, but it was obviously not the time to think about it. He tried to recall the nightmare he had encountered and said intermittently, I remember that the body of the nightmare is very fragile. Their powerful attack depends on the sacrifice of the body. The nightmare in front of you has the attack power of Jindan realm, and its body is as fragile as that of Lianqi realm. As long as you can hit it, you can easily kill it. How to hit it? I don't know. Black Lotus's straightforward answer almost made Su Li fall into the nightmare's bloody mouth. Her face immediately darkened. Black Lotus? Don't worry. Let me think. Let me think. The mark of the Black Lotus rotated rapidly. If Su Li could see through the mark into the Black Lotus, she would see a child scratching his head desperately with cold sweat on his forehead. He also knew that it was not the time to joke, but he really didn't know. There were too few nightmares in the ghost realm, and most of them couldn't grow up. So, there were even fewer nightmares that could become the peak power of the ghost realm. As the most precious treasure of the ghost realm, he was superior. How could he care about the inconspicuous nightmare clan in the ghost realm? However, after all, Black Lotus had lived for too long. When he racked his brains to recall the information about the nightmare, he really found some clues. Su Li, although the nightmare can turn into nothingness, it also needs to absorb energy from the surroundings to maintain its form, and it is very afraid of ghost poison. Poison! Su Li's eyes lit up. In the 2 lives of the reincarnation mirror, she was best at poison. But I don't have poison with me now. Even if I want to create a poisonous environment, I can't do it. No, I have it. Su Li fixed her eyes and sneered. She pointed at the universe ring on her neck and took out a shining dagger. This was LVU's collection, and it was not an ordinary item. Then, without saying a word, she turned the blade inward and wiped it with her palm, leaving a blood mark. The dagger was immediately stained with red blood. Black Lotus understood Su Li's intention. She wanted to poison the nightmare with the poison in her blood. But Su Li's blood couldn't even poison mortals before. Could it poison the nightmare? But at present there seemed to be no better way than this. Since you have the poison, how can you create a poisonous environment in a short time? If you continue to ruin this grotto, it will collapse. Black Lotus nagged in her ear, but Su Li turned a deaf ear to him. She continued to dodge and put the dagger between her palms, with her eyes shining. I didn't practice the AO sword skills in this life, but I don't need the AO sword determination method to control it. I can use the Black Lotus tactics to control it. Although the precision is a little poor, it is enough. Thinking of this, Su Li's mind moved, and the dagger between her palms immediately changed. The blood stained on the dagger seemed to be alive. It climbed all over the blade evenly and dyed the silver dagger red. The smell of blood continued to evaporate with the vibration of the dagger and condensed around the dagger without dispersing. When this circle of red mist condensed to the limit, Su Li, whose face was pale, changed her eyes. She moved her palms away from the dagger and shouted, "Go!" Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The dagger immediately penetrated the shadow of the nightmare like an arrow, leaving a line of red mist visible to the naked eye. Then, under Su Li's control, it flew wildly in this small space, constantly penetrating the shadow of the nightmare. The red mist was getting thicker. Being harassed by the dagger like this, the nightmare was extremely angry, and its target immediately changed from Su Li to the dagger. But its movement was too big, so it couldn't catch the small dagger. At the same time, it had to turn into nothingness to avoid the dagger's attack. Every once in a while, it had to absorb the power in the nothingness. Su Li could see that the red mist suddenly tumbled a lot less, and gradually became thicker under the supplement of the dagger. In the blink of an eye, half of the blood on the dagger had been reduced, but the surrounding blood mist was not thicker, and all of it was absorbed into the body of the nightmare. It worked! Black Lotus cried out in surprise. Su Li's face was pale, and she was a little dizzy because of the serious mental exhaustion. But when she saw the nightmare swaying and couldn't distinguish the directions, she suddenly showed a relieved smile. It was finally over. Chapter 358. The nightmare curled up on the ground shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye. Finally, it shrank into a palm-sized black cat with shiny black fur and squinting eyes. "Is this the body of the nightmare?" Su Li asked doubtfully. Black Lotus also sighed. "I don't know. But it seems that it has been knocked out by your poison. It should not be a threat. Let's take this opportunity to kill it." Su Li looked serious and grabbed the nightmare on the ground. As Black Lotus said, its body was very fragile and light. A little force could break its bones and kill it. At the moment when Su Li was about to kill it, the black cat suddenly opened its eyes, lowered its head and bit the back of Su Li's finger, leaving a very small blood hole. Su Li's expression changed slightly. Before she reacted, the complex rune on the back of her finger spiraled out of the blood hole. After the black light turned around, the whole rune shrank into the blood hole. At this moment, Su Li immediately sensed that she had established a subtle connection with the nightmare, just like the connection between her and the reincarnation mirror. This is the nightmare recognized its master. This thing can recognize its master? How come I have never heard of it? Could it be that your poison has poisoned it, silly? Black Lotus exclaimed again. His surprised look was really contrary to his glorious image, but he obviously couldn't care so much now. Su Li didn't speak. Even Black Lotus didn't know what was going on. How could she know what was going on? After thinking for a moment, she tried to pass a ball of thoughts containing kindness to the nightmare. The little black cat immediately stretched out comfortably in Su Li's palm and made a sound, meow. Su Li, Black Lotus. Although she didn't know what happened to the nightmare, since it recognized its master, it meant that there was no danger. Su Li put it on her shoulder and let it continue to sleep. Then she turned around and continued to walk inside. It's a pity that the king of the ghost clan was an illusion created by the nightmare. That's the talent of the nightmare. It can show the side you want to see most. Black Lotus shook his head and sighed. Su Li glanced at the ring. It's the scene you want to see most, not me. Black Lotus. When he returned to the end of the pit, what he saw was no longer the extraordinarily large underground cavern, but a small, shallow green cold pond. Bits of cold mist rose up, freezing the stone surface at the top of the pond until it was snow-white. The stone walls further away were covered with water droplets, extremely wet, but not a single snake, insect, rat, or ant could be seen. So it's the serene jade pool. This is the accompanying cold pool of nightmare. Although it's not as precious as the life core of the Ghost King, it should be more than enough to awaken your talent. Su Li nodded gently. Black Lotus suddenly remembered something and said, I understand. If this nightmare really escaped from the ghost realm, its strength would definitely not be so low, and it would have a sense of intimacy with you. Obviously, no elder has told it about the taboo of the body of evil ghost. This is the ghost seed that drifted out from the ghost realm. That's right. That's right. That's right. The so-called ghost seed is the hope of the ghost realm. The Lord of the Ghost Realm once had a premonition that the Ghost Realm would encounter a catastrophe, so he secretly collected the descendants with pure bloodline of all races and sealed them. If the Ghost Realm was really broken one day, these ghost seeds would be transmitted to all provinces and regions to seek a chance of survival for the Ghost Clan. Speaking of this, Black Lotus's words were a little more complicated. I didn't expect that after sleeping for so many years, I could still meet a newly born ghost seed. Su Li's eyes flashed, and she glanced at the nightmare that was sleeping soundly on her shoulder. From the moment it recognized the owner rune, the ghost poison in the nightmare's body had disappeared automatically. At present, it was lethargic, mostly because it was not fully developed and needed to sleep to supplement. Black Lotus, how to collect the serene jade pool? Su Li suddenly said. Black Lotus came to his sense, and a suction came from the ring as it rotated. At the same time, his voice came out, the serene jade pool is an earth treasure, and the growth of the nightmare is inseparable from it. The two complement each other, so naturally, it can't be put in the universe ring. I will collect it and then pass the energy in it to you. When the nightmare needs it, find a suitable place to release it. Su Li didn't care that Black Lotus hid his space. She just nodded and asked, if I absorb the energy in it, will the nightmare be affected? It has just been recognized as the owner, and you begin to care about this guy? It almost killed you just now. Black Lotus clicked his tongue and replied, of course it will be affected, but it doesn't matter. At most, its growth will be slower. At worst, you can find more things with spiritual power to fill in the pool to compensate it. That's good. Su Li nodded and saw that the serene jade pool had been completely absorbed by Black Lotus Ring, and the catacombs had become ordinary. Maybe it would become a cave of snakes and insects that liked humidity soon. Seeing this, she no longer hesitated and turned to leave. At the same time, in the Jincheng Imperial Palace, Fan Zisong followed LVU helplessly and said bitterly, Senior, we have searched the Imperial Palace 3 times. Do you want to continue? LVU was also helpless in his heart, but he didn't show it. When he was about to continue to prevaricate Fan Zisong, he suddenly looked serious and immediately turned his head to the collapsed palace he had just checked. Boy, come with me. Fan Zisong was slightly stunned and immediately followed him. It seemed that the senior had found something. LVU came to the collapsed palace and immediately waved his hand to lift all the broken houses, revealing the original furnishings in the palace. He glanced around and finally fixed his eyes on the pale golden bed. Is the Emperor of Jincheng hiding under the bed in the bedroom? I can't see it. LVU muttered in his heart, walked over and patted the bed. Immediately, a tactical matrix wave broke, revealing the stone stairs under the bed. There is a secret passage. Fan Zisong was slightly happy and thought that he could finally leave. But on the surface, he cupped his hands and said respectfully, "Senior, you are so powerful. You are really powerful." LVU shook his head and walked down. He was not powerful at all. He just received the Master's sound transmission. It seems that the Master has solved the matter of Lu's mansion. LVU thought to himself, but he was not surprised. He had gradually become accustomed to Su Li's great power. In addition, he fell into Su Li's tactical matrix when they met for the first time. It was easy for him to find a hidden tactical matrix. Later, the two naturally saw Jin Qinghe, who was seriously injured and dying in the adytum. Although he was seriously injured, he was just in Zhuji realm, so LVU saved him with a little effort. Jin Qinghe was grateful for escaping from death. After knowing what happened, he wanted to worship LVU as a god and beg him to stay in Jin Qinghe as an old protector of the country. However, LVU's heart was on Su Li, so he refused. Jin Qinghe could only settle for the second best. After knowing Fan Zisong's identity and Jin Ying's matter, he immediately took Consort Ling into the palace and prepared to confer the title of Empress. What happened later had nothing to do with Su Li. At this moment, she was on Fan Zisong's flying cloud, cultivating with her eyes closed, refining the reincarnation mirror with blood and subduing the nightmare this time. She had lost too much Pneuma and Pneuma, which had slightly hurt her foundation. It couldn't be made up by cultivation alone. Although the blood crystal condensed by Black Lotus last time is pure, its power is too violent, which is not suitable for nourishing and supplementing Pneuma and Pneuma. If I want to use it, I must find something to neutralize it. While thinking secretly, Su Li suddenly heard Jin Ying's painful cry. When she opened her eyes, it turned out that Jin Ying wanted to secretly hug the nightmare, but she was bitten instead. Fortunately, she had already told the nightmare before that the strength of the bite was equivalent to that of a kitten. Jin Ying's hand was only scratched a little. "Hey, you are so naughty!" Jin Ying raised her fist angrily. Of course, the nightmare would not be scared. Hearing the two words, "hey," it rolled its eyes and continued to sleep. Su Li couldn't help but smile. It turned out that this guy was not stupid because of the poison, but very smart. "Junior sister apprentice, don't laugh." Jin Ying pouted aggrievedly, "Even He bullies me." Fan Zisong looked back in surprise, but saw that Su Li had returned to her usual cold appearance. He couldn't help but feel pity. He had never seen the smile of his junior sister apprentice, and he couldn't help but envy Jin Ying. It was easier to talk with peers. Thinking of this, he smiled and said, "The little black cat picked up by the junior sister apprentice is quite intelligent. Take it back and raise it on the mountain. Maybe it will become a spirit beast to protect the mountain in the future. Junior sister apprentice Jin, you can't bully it." Jin Ying rolled her eyes unhappily and returned the black cat to Su Li. She snorted, "First senior fellow apprentice, you are partial. Why do you call me junior sister apprentice? Why do you have to use my surname? I want to be the same as you." Fan Zisong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The junior sister apprentice is the last one, so it is natural to call her that. Since junior sister apprentice Jean doesn't want me to use her surname, I will call you second junior sister apprentice from now on. No, second junior sister apprentice. It sounds so silly. Senior fellow apprentice, you are partial. Jin Ying was even angrier, but Fan Zisong laughed loudly, and the laughter spread far away. Jining was so angry that she also laughed, revealing 2 small canine teeth, which was very cute. The days with the senior fellow apprentices and junior sister apprentices were much happier than those in the Imperial Palace. Suli held the nightmare. Although she didn't smile clearly, there was a faint smile on the corner of her mouth. Hey, no matter how Jining hugs you in the future, don't bully her. Do you hear me? The nightmare. Everyone laughed and talked all the way. Time passed very quickly. A few days later, the mountain gate of Huajian's sect was already in sight. The big tactical matrix for protecting mountain is not turned on? Through a thin illusion barrier, Suli clearly sensed the star-stacked tactical matrix dormant underground. She couldn't help frowning and then relaxed. It seems that the crisis of Huajian's sect has temporarily passed. Otherwise, the sect will not be so peaceful. As the thought flashed through her mind, Fan Zisong had already driven the flying cloud to the foothold on the top of the mountain. Before he landed, Suli saw a strange woman stop in front of him from the stone steps at the foot of the mountain. Her eyes were full of killing intent, and she shouted coldly. Chapter 359. Sin. Fan Zisong spat out a word coldly and protected Suli and Jin Yu behind him. Yu Lin, I have never done anything beyond the rules of the sect. What sin have I committed? Su Li's eyes narrowed slightly. It turned out that she was the first senior sister apprentice of Danxia Mount who had secretly played tricks before. She quietly spread her psychic awareness and secretly looked at the woman. Apart from her character, this woman's cultivation was indeed extraordinary. Her cultivation was restrained and condensed, and there was a fluctuation in her body that was very familiar to Su Li. Is she a poison practitioner? Her eyes flickered slightly. She had heard from Fan Zisong that this woman was clearly a practitioner specializing in water attack. Sure enough, rumors could not be trusted. Only seeing was believing. Oh, Yu Lin's pretty face was cold and flashed with cold light. It is against the rules to take a boy who has just entered the sect out of the sect without authorization. I heard that you are the last disciple of the Master and have received all the teachings of the Master. Let me see. Junior fellow apprentice Zisong's means. Then she didn't wait for Fan Zisong's response. Without saying a word, she clenched her palm and attacked Fan Zisong at close range. The spiritual power surged and set off a gust of wind. Yu Lin, how dare you attack your fellow apprentice? Fan Zisong's face changed slightly and he warned sternly. But Yu Lin turned a deaf ear and didn't stop at all. There was a trace of killing intention in her long and narrow eyes. Fan Zisong didn't want to expose his strength. When he was about to dodge, he suddenly remembered that Su Li and Jin Yu were still behind him. He couldn't help but scold, shameless. For the sake of the junior sister apprentice, he had to raise his palm and run the spiritual power to confront Yu Lin. As soon as the 2 palms touched, it was like a thunder on the ground. The disciples at the foot of the mountain were scared and looked up. Boom! The wind raged and the surrounding trees bent down. The leaves fell like raindrops. Jining couldn't open her eyes and was unstable. She quickly grabbed Su Li's hand. Su Li pretended that she couldn't stand it and retreated with Jining. Her eyes narrowed slightly and looked at Yu Lin's white palm meaningfully. As soon as the 2 palms touched, they separated. Fan Zisong and Yu Lin each took 3 steps back. They were evenly matched. Fan Zisong was angry and was about to continue fighting. But he saw Yu Lin suddenly smile and float away. At the same time, her slightly majestic voice spread throughout Danxia Mount. Haha! Junior fellow apprentice's cultivation is really powerful. The secret realm of shattered spirits is just around the corner. You and I should support each other. Let's stop this competition. The disciples at the foot of the mountain suddenly understood. So it's eldest senior sister sparring with junior brother. No wonder there's such a huge commotion. When can I have the same bearing and cultivation as eldest senior sister? I really envy that senior brother who sparred with eldest senior sister. Yes, yes, a few inherited disciples who knew Yulin's true colors frowned. Which disciple was bullied by Yulin? It wasn't as if something like this hadn't happened before. They all stood up for her, but in the end, even the Peak Lord couldn't do anything to her. Instead, they were the ones who were punished for no reason. They were so sullen that they wanted to vomit blood. Over time, when this happened again, everyone silently endured it, and no one dared to stand out to say a word of justice. At this moment, on the mountain peak, Fan Zisong frowned and looked at the direction where Yulin disappeared. He was puzzled. He could feel that Yulin didn't use her full strength. She just touched his palm and then left. It didn't seem that she was testing his strength. What did she mean? Yulin's action is not random. There must be a reason, but I haven't found it yet. Taking a deep breath, Fan Zisong temporarily suppressed his contemplation. Seeing that Suli and Suli were safe and sound, he was slightly relieved and took them back to the side hall. After settling them down, Fan Zisong returned to his residence and immediately began to communicate with the jade token on his neck. Senior, I have something to ask you. After a while, a familiar and old voice sounded in his ear. The old man said leisurely, "What's the matter?" Fan Zisong immediately told his experience. The old man pondered for a moment and suddenly said, "Open your palm and let me have a look." Fan Zisong was shocked and immediately turned over his right palm, which was facing Yulin's palm. As expected, there was an inconspicuous black spot in the middle of his palm. His face immediately became slightly ugly. When he was about to use his psychic awareness to clear it, he was stopped by the old man. This is the poisonous spirit-devouring insect. If you use your spiritual power to expel it, it will only speed up its growth. The old man's voice was dignified. During this time, don't stimulate your spiritual power or fight with others. Otherwise, it will also accelerate its growth. If you wait for it to mature, your cultivation won't be enough for it to absorb. In just a few days, it will regress back to a mortal. When there is no more spiritual power to absorb, it will start to suck your blood until you are sucked dry. Fan Zisong was shocked and his face was completely pale. Yulin gave him such a cruel poison. Senior, do you have a way to detoxify it? He couldn't help but be nervous. He had tried before. Master Wang Yu's knowledge was definitely not as good as that of the senior in the jade token. If the senior didn't know, his poison would be in danger. Alas, the old man sighed, which immediately made Fan Zisong's heart sink. If I still have my physical body and cultivation, I can easily detoxify your poison. But now, I can't do anything. If you can find a practitioner who is proficient in poison circle, maybe there is hope. Fan Zisong sat on the rush cushion in silence, with a faint look of despair. Poison practitioner. There were only a few poison practitioners in Jojo region, and they were all evil practitioners who were more powerful than his master. He had no bargaining chip to ask them to treat him. If not, I can only find away from the person who poisoned me. The old man hesitated for a moment, and finally didn't tell Fan Zisong his speculation about Suli. First, there was still a long time before Fan Zisong's poison took effect. Second, he didn't dare. He didn't dare to confirm it. There were two ways for those who entered the illusion to get out of the reincarnation mirror. One was to be killed by the person in the illusion in a way to get out of the fate of the illusion. The life ring was broken and transmitted out. This kind of person had no memory of what happened in the illusion. As for the second way, it was to forcibly escape on the day when the reincarnation mirror was broken. It was not restricted by the rules of the reincarnation mirror, so the memory could be preserved. He could barely be regarded as the second way, but his cultivation was not enough. He escaped, but he ended up half dead. If he hadn't met this jade token, he would have disappeared long ago. Because of this, His memory of Su Li was so deep. The memory of the two lives in the illusion overlapped. If Su Li in Danxia Mount was really that person, what a terrifying demon she would be. If she knew her identity in that trap, she would definitely resent the whole cultivation circle of Qingshui Circle. At that time, the whole Qingshui Circle would be plunged into misery and suffering, and not even a blade of grass would grow. I hope it's just the same name as what this guy said. The old man murmured, and his voice gradually became smaller. About half a day later, a red light flashed into the peak. Fan Zisong saw it and immediately got up and rushed to the main hall. Su Li's divine awareness had always been paying attention to Fan Zisong. After seeing the familiar wave burst out from Fan Zisong again, his expression suddenly became ugly. She suddenly had a guess in her heart. There is a soul hidden in Fan Zisong, but I don't know if I know it, Su Li pondered. When Fan Zisong and Yulin fought, she saw that Yulin poisoned Fan Zisong. Although she didn't know what kind of poison it was, for her, as long as it was not above the level of Jindan realm, she could easily detoxify it. In the illusion, she practiced medicine and poison in 2 lives, plus her 900 years of cultivation in the previous life. It was not as simple as 1 + 1. Although she hadn't specifically tested it, Su Li knew that she had already surpassed the sum of her previous life in terms of realm and reached an unknown realm. At present, there was no good experimental tool. Huajian's sect was too small, and there was no powerful opponent. Except for her good friend Huayan, the others were vulnerable. I'm afraid I have to wait until I enter the secret realm of shattered spirits to find those shattered spirits. Thinking of Huayan, Su Li frowned, and finally suppressed the idea of meeting Huayan. Now it was not the right time. Thinking of this, she got up and walked out. Jining saw her and asked quickly, "Junior sister apprentice, where are you going? It's dangerous outside. I'd better wait for senior fellow apprentice." Speaking of this, Jining suddenly froze, and then scratched her head embarrassedly. She forgot that senior fellow apprentice didn't need to protect her junior sister apprentice. Su Li left the palace smoothly and glanced at the silent main hall. After running the all-spirits tactics, her pneuma immediately disappeared, and she swept down the mountain like a ghost. In just a few breaths, Su Li had come to the edge of the illusion tactical matrix at the foot of the mountain. She took out the carrier rune and inputted some spiritual power. A green figure immediately flashed in the dense forest and stood respectfully in front of Su Li. It was Lvu who followed her all the way. "Master." Seeing that Lvu's pneuma was more hidden than before, Su Li couldn't help but nod gently, which was a sign that he had practiced the complete all-spirits tactics. "How is it going when I asked you to do it?" Lvu immediately replied, "Master, it's a coincidence. The small secret realm, Shattered Spirits, controlled by the Wanjian sect will open in less than a month. I have already got a place. Look, Master." As he said, Lvu took out an emerald ring, which was tied with a piece of red rope. It was very beautiful. Su Li reached out and took it, with a faint smile on her face. "Thank you." She didn't ask how Lvu got this thing. Although the secret realm of Shattered Spirits was controlled by the Wanjian sect, they would invite a lot of potential casual practitioners every time. If a practitioner in Jindan realm couldn't even get a place, he would be too incompetent. Seeing Su Li's smile, Lvu relaxed a lot and then said with a wry smile, "As for the matter of Junlo group you mentioned, I didn't find out anything. I only know that it is related to the Su family, a cultivation family." Su Li was slightly stunned and blurted out, "Which Su family?" Chapter 360. Su Zipei. Su Li's eyes changed, and a face flashed in front of her eyes. Sometimes it was the inviolable holy girl of Zihan's sect, and sometimes it was the third sister, full of jealousy in the illusion. Finally, the picture was fixed on the night before she entered the reincarnation mirror. She came to her and said with a smile, "Su Li, you will never understand what the reincarnation mirror means to you." "Don't understand." A hint of coldness appeared on the corner of Su Li's mouth, which disappeared in a flash. Although Lvu was suspicious, he didn't dare to say anything and waited for her to continue silently. Zhenlo Group has always been exclusive and good at keeping secret. If you can't find it, then forget it. Find the things on the list for me. Su Li quickly came to her senses and took out a thin piece of paper. The ink on it was still wet. Obviously, it had just been written. Lvu quickly took it, but muttered in his heart. Why did the master sound very familiar with the Zhenlo Group? Was she already registered in the Zhenlo Group? After more than 10 days of contact, Lvu had roughly inferred that Su Li had the body of invulnerable to all evils. She was an evildoer with great talent in tactical matrix, and her talent in comprehension was also terrifying. It's a pity that the master is not focused enough. If you concentrate on improving your cultivation, you may have already become a practitioner in Zhuji realm, and your combat power will not be inferior to mine. Lvu shook his head and glanced at the messy poisonous herbs on the note. None of them were rare. He didn't even ask and consciously put away the note and left. The master had a lot of secrets. As long as he had a little brain, he wouldn't ask for a snub. After all, he didn't even know the master's name. Sighing secretly, Lvu's figure disappeared in the dense forest. Su Li's perception was so keen that although Lvu didn't show any different expression, his emotions did not escape her eyes. However, she didn't care. Telling Lvu some things would only hurt him. In the sealed hall, a voice filled with anger suddenly sounded out, filled with incomparably manic fire. Yuan Qi. You were poisoned by Yulin, or the extremely horrible poisonous spirit-devouring insect. Wang Yufeng's eyes were round and red, and her heart was full of unspeakable anger and disappointment. She suppressed her emotions that were about to burst out and said with hatred, "The secret realm of shattered spirits is about to open. How can you be so careless?" Fan Zisong's face turned blue, and his lips were tightly pursed. He hid the existence of the senior in the jade token and finished the story. Wang Yu's first reaction was not to detoxify him, but to be disappointed. Indeed, Danxia Mount urgently needed someone to kick Yulin out of the peak. The Secret Realm tryout was an excellent opportunity, but he made a mistake at this juncture, so Wang Yu was certainly dissatisfied. He also felt guilty, but, from his master's tone, he didn't hear any concern for him. All she could think about was the secret realm of shattered spirit. Fan Zisong laughed at himself. Well, he was just an orphan picked up and raised by Wang Yu. Cultivation was ruthless. Although he had served the master for hundreds of years, for the master he was just a tool to win back her face. Disciple has disappointed master. Fan Zisong was very calm, kneeling down and kowtowing. Wang Yu's face changed slightly. Her momentary star level made Fan Zisong realize her true nature, which was irreparable. Unfortunately, if my second son could always remain loyal to me, he might take the risk for me. But now it's really impossible. Wang Yu frowned when she heard the grievous news that she had once again ruined her cultivation. Her expression grew increasingly gloomy. After kowtowing, Fan Zisong didn't wait for Wang Yu's order as usual. Instead, he got up by himself and said expressionlessly, "Master, I will still participate in the secret realm of shattered spirits this time. I won't lose face for you even if I have to risk my life. I'm leaving now." After saying that, Fan Zisong left the palace without saying anything. Wang Yu looked a little relaxed. As long as Fan Zisong was willing to help, there was still a slight possibility for her to drive Yulin away. It was not a waste to cultivate Fan Zisong for so many years. She comforted herself in this way, But when she thought of Fan Zisong's change of attitude just now, she couldn't be happy. In the side hall, Su Li had returned early. As usual, she sat in a corner and practiced quietly. Jining seemed to have matured a lot after going out this time. She was no longer playful, and sat a little further away from Su Li to meditate and breathe alone. At this time, there was a noise outside the door. Jining couldn't keep calm and opened her eyes. When she saw Fan Zisong, she immediately smiled and shouted, "Senior fellow apprentice, you're back." Yes. Fan Zisong, as usual, had a gentle smile on his face, covering up the complex and desperate emotions in his heart very well. At least Jining didn't see it. Su Li opened her eyes and glanced at him. She didn't say anything and continued to practice. With her eyesight, she could naturally see that Fan Zisong's heart was broken. If he kept such a mentality, it was impossible to break through to Jindan realm. It seems that Wang Yu's attitude towards her last disciple is not as concerned as I thought. But it's normal. She had heard Fan Zisong talk about his life experience. The most precious thing in the cultivation circle was love, and the cheapest was also love. There were too many practitioners with a cold temperament like Wang Yu in the cultivation circle. She might have found her conscience and adopted an abandoned child to cultivate, but once she encountered a situation like today, she would abandon him without hesitation. Human nature was selfish. Ordinary people would harm others for their own selfish desires, not to mention the practitioners who had practiced for hundreds of years or even thousands of years and didn't treat human nature as food. Cultivation was timeless. Su Li continued to consolidate the 7th hurdle of ancient Lianqi realm, and more than half a month passed in the blink of an eye. The selection battle of the secret realm of shattered spirits would be held in 3 days. In the past half a month, under the guidance of the elder in the jade token, Fan Zisong sealed his cultivation and didn't leak any spiritual power. The poisonous spirit-devouring insect in his palm couldn't absorb energy, so it didn't grow bigger. Boy, are you really going to lose your life for your heartless master? It's not worth it. She just saved you casually. Why do you have to be so stubborn? After sealing your cultivation, the danger of the poisonous spirit-devouring insect is temporarily gone. You can think of other ways to save yourself. From time to time, the voice of persuasion came from the jade token. Fan Zisong shook his head in silence, and the gentle and warm smile disappeared from his face. I wanted to take you as a disciple after a further inspection, but I didn't expect, alas. A sigh came from the jade token. He had been persuading Fan Zisong for more than half a month, but he didn't get any decent response from Fan Zisong. He had no other way, and the rest depended on Fan Zisong's luck. If Fan Zisong died, it was his fate. Under the influence of the selection battle of the secret realm of shattered spirits, the whole Huajian sect revealed a tense and busy atmosphere. Wang Yu was also so busy that she completely forgot about Su Li and Jining. No one came to disturb her. The spiritual power in Su Li's pubic region soared, and the spiritual stone in her hand was consumed at a terrifying rate. Just the day before the selection battle of the shattered spirits, in the addendum, a mass of horrifying spiritual power suddenly broke out after a long silence. Then the pneuma of all spirits tactics flashed, and all pneuma was quickly restrained. The change was less than a breath. Although there were signs of condensing thunder in the sky, no one noticed it because it dissipated too fast. I didn't expect that I could break through to the 8th hurdle before entering the secret realm. Su Li opened her eyes. Her eyes were as clear as the river, and a faint smile appeared on her face. The 8th hurdle of ancient Lianqi realm. I didn't expect that there was no bottleneck in breaking through. Black Lotus said angrily, of course. Lianqi realm is just the beginning, and it's the time to lay the foundation. How could there be any bottleneck? In the ancient cultivation era, no practitioner would have any bottleneck before reaching Jindan realm. Only when the inheritance of the cultivation circle is declining can there be such a ridiculous situation. As you said, that's the ancient times. Suli replied calmly, and Black Lotus immediately became silent. He couldn't say a word because of the rebuke. It's almost time for me to go. Ignoring Black Lotus, Suli got up and opened the addendum, gently closed it, and hung up the sign of Do Not Disturb. Then she turned around and walked out of the hall. The maids in the hall seemed to be blind and couldn't see Suli at all. After leaving the palace, Suli sensed that the pneuma of the peak stage of Zhuji realm in the peak was much less, and Wang Yu was not there, either. She couldn't help but smile and walked briskly down the mountain. Soon, she saw Lvu, who had been waiting for a long time in the hidden tactical matrix at the foot of the mountain. Looking at Su Li's innocent smile and her extremely confusing immature face, Lvu smiled bitterly. Who could have thought that she was cruel, temperamental, and the master of a senior in Jindan realm? Master, everything is ready. Lvu handed over a storage bracelet. Suli took it and glanced at it. Then she nodded. Good. It seems that you have paid a lot to collect all of them in a short time. Lvu looked even more bitter. He had thought that the list given by Suli was full of common poisonous herbs, but when he collected them, he found that there were 2 or 3 particularly rare poisonous herbs. Although they were not precious, few people sold them. In order to collect them, he almost broke his legs in the past half a month. Let's go. When I come out of the secret realm of shattered spirits, I will make it up to you. Suli waved her hand. Lvu's body tightened, and he said repeatedly, What are you talking about, master? It's my pleasure to work for you. Suli curled her lips slightly, shook her head, and said nothing. After 10 minutes, Lvu drove a spiritual saber straight to the sky, heading for the nearest selection point of the secret realm of shattered spirit. 4 hours later, a green light flashed. Lvu put away the spiritual saber and landed outside a big city with Suli. Wuyang City is the nearest selection point to Huajian sect. In addition to Huajian sect, 4 small sects also come here to compete for the places. As Lvu introduced, he was about to take Suli into the city. But he was shocked to find that Suli's body made several bursting sounds. In the blink of an eye, she grew a lot taller, and her pneuma and face became completely strange. If Lvu hadn't seen Suli's change with his own eyes, he couldn't associate the thin woman in front of him with the petite girl before. You are master? Suli pulled her clothes, which were a little small, and frowned. She said carelessly, If you can reach the 2nd level of all spirits tactics, you can do the same. The 2nd level. Master, you have reached the 2nd level? Chapter 361. The 2nd level of all spirits tactics appeared only after Suli provided the complete all spirits tactic. If she could practice it, Lvu guessed that she could not only completely disguise her appearance and pneuma, but also change her body shape at will. It was really an excellent secret method to save her life. It was also the reason why he was shocked at the beginning. But he didn't expect that what he had been imagining was easily achieved by Suli. How long has it been? Master has pushed the all spirits tactics to the 2nd level, which I have never touched before, but I still can't find the way. Lvu lamented in his heart. There was an incomprehensible gap between ordinary practitioners and evildoers. Let's go into the city first. Suli glanced at the flowing lights that turned into practitioners in the sky and walked to the city gate expressionlessly. Lvu hurriedly followed her. Affected by the secret realm of shattered spirits, all the inns in Wuyang City were full during this time, and casual practitioners without backgrounds even had to wander on the street. Some enemies were extremely angry when they met, which caused a lot of riot. Fortunately, Huajian sect maintained order, so there was no big trouble. "Master, this is your room." In the best inn in Wuyang City, Lvu stood in front of a Tianzi suite and opened the door, saying with a smile. Su Li glanced at him in surprise and walked into the room. Looking at the exquisite decorations everywhere, she couldn't help but nod slightly and said, "Sorry to let you spend a lot of money." Lvu waved his hand repeatedly. "Master, what are you talking about? This is what I should do. Although it is nothing in your eyes, I am a practitioner in Jindan realm anyway, so it is not difficult to get a Tianzi suite." "I forgot about that." Su Li smiled and turned to walk to the inner room, waving her hand. "You can rest in the outer room." Lvu was stunned, but he couldn't see Su Li. He couldn't help showing a touch of surprise in his eyes. He had thought that Su Li would let him guard outside. He didn't expect that she would take his feelings into consideration, which was not like what his master usually did. Master's temper is hard to understand. With a sigh, Lvu couldn't help but smile. Then he sat down on a wide soft chair and quietly waited for the selection battle of shattered spirits. The inner room occupied 1/3 of the size of the suite, but the decoration was far more exquisite than the outer room. Every tent and soft bed was worth 1,000 taels of gold, and the luxurious ancient wood furniture was even more expensive. The whole room was filled with a faint sandalwood fragrance. Su Li looked at it for a while and then retracted her gaze. She sat cross-legged on the bed. The token Lvu gave her was a relatively advanced second-class token. She didn't need to participate in the first round of the scrimmage, and could directly participate in the second round of the arena battle. That was to say, she had nothing to do in tomorrow's selection battle. What a coincidence! Su Li made a simple gesture with one hand. After the red light flashed, a small flame appeared on her fingertip. This was a cultivation spell that could only be used after one reached the foundation establishment stage. It was one of the 5 elements basic spells, fire spell. But now, after her cultivation level reached the 8th layer of refining, she directly stepped on the iron law of the cultivation world and displayed it with the cultivation level of the Qi refining stage. Let's not talk about the difference between spiritual power and genuine energy. The quality and quantity of the spiritual power in my pubic region are no different from that of ordinary genuine energy. Su Li murmured. Her eyes flashed with a hint of expectation. She really wanted to know which level of practitioners in the 18th hurdle of refining instruments could rival. The trip to the secret realm of shattered spirits was not dangerous for her. As long as she could find a place where spiritual power gathered, her cultivation could be improved quickly. There was no obstacle before the 12th hurdle of refining instrument. After the 12th hurdle, it was the first time to go to Chuangxing Path. Little Su Li, although you have the state of mind of Jindan realm in the cultivation circle, it is always difficult to go to Chuangxing Path. The more talented you are, the more dangerous it is. You can't be careless. Black Lotus warned her. I see. Su Li took a deep breath and restrained her slightly fluctuating thoughts. The challenge battle is different from a life and death battle. If I crush them with my physical body, it will be too conspicuous. I can only use spells. There was still more than one day, enough for her to sort out all the low-level spells she had learned. As for how to disguise her cultivation, if the all-spirits tactics didn't work, how could it be collected by Black Lotus himself? In the midst of cultivation, a night passed by in a flash. Early the next morning, the square in the center of Wuyang City, which was specially used to select the participants of the secret realm of shattered spirits, was immediately bustling. Groups of qualified sects and casual practitioners with tokens entered the square. The number of onlookers was several times more than those who participated in the battle. As it was getting closer and closer to 7 a.m., the square was already overcrowded. As the leading forces in this area, the 3 sects had to send more people to maintain order. The inherited disciples of Hua Jian's sect are here. Someone shouted in the noise. Everyone immediately quieted down and looked in the same direction. Under their sight, they could see the inherited disciples in uniform black and white walking slowly. The leader was the most powerful mount head of Hua Jian's sect, Fairy Hongyu Wang Yu. As they walked, all onlookers consciously made way for the people of Hua Jian's sect. Among the three sects, Hua Jian's sect used to be the most powerful sect. Although it fell to the second place in recent years, it was still not a sect that casual practitioners like them could offend. Ha ha ha, I haven't seen you for many years. Fairy Hongyu is still as elegant as before. Before Wang Yu led the disciples into the square, she couldn't help but stop when she heard the voice. She turned around and narrowed her eyes with a smile. Elder Qing of Meng's sect. It's just 100 years. For us cultivators, it's just a snap of the fingers, so it won't leave many traces. An old man with a benevolent face in a white robe walked over with a smile, shaking his head and sighing. A mortal's life is only 100 years. It's not a short time. As he spoke, the 5 disciples behind the old man also stood still, but they didn't mean to salute Wang Yu. Yu Lin and others standing behind Wang Yu also looked at them coldly. Their relationship with Meng's sect was just a little better than that of a mortal enemy. Every year, in order to compete for cultivation resources, more than 5 inherited disciples died on both sides. Wang Yu couldn't help but cover her mouth and chuckle. I forgot that Elder Qing is an elder. For you, 100 years is indeed long enough. Otherwise, it doesn't sound very good if you die of old age in a snap of the fingers. You're right. Elder Qing still nodded with a smile, without the slightest anger, but the disciples behind him were angry. When they were about to stand up and speak, they were interrupted by another laugh. I'm late. I'm really ashamed to let you stand here and wait. As soon as this voice appeared, Wang Yu and Elder Qing's faces suddenly changed. They gathered their thoughts and looked in the direction of the voice. As expected, they saw the people of Yuling's sect, the last sect, had also arrived. The leader was dressed like a scholar, with a book bag on his back. His face was sallow, like a sick scholar who had been ill for a long time, and he didn't look like an immortal cultivator at all. But Wang Yu and Elder Qing didn't dare to be presumptuous. They braced themselves to walk to him and salute. Headmaster Bingshu, nice to meet you. This person was Bingshu, the headmaster of Yuling's sect, which ranked first among the 3 sects. Yuling's sect was the weakest among the 3 sections. Just 300 years ago, immortal Bingshu suddenly rose. With the cultivation of Jindan realm, he swept away the surrounding 12 sects, large and small, and forcibly merged them into one sect. The power of the sect was unprecedentedly strong. If immortal Hua Yan and the headmaster of Meng's sect hadn't felt the danger and joined hands to resist immortal Bingshu, Yuling's sect would have been the dominant sect now. And it was rumored that immortal Bingshu had always been temperamental and extremely difficult to serve. It was common for him to kill people without saying a word. Standing in front of such a ruthless person, Wang Yu and Elder Qing didn't dare to be presumptuous. It doesn't matter. I feel a little bored recently and come to have a look. You can do as you like. Seeing the two being so obedient, Bingshu was a little bored, but he waved his hand with a smile and walked to the square with the 5 arrogant disciples behind him. Wang Yu and Elder Qing looked at each other and sighed secretly. They temporarily put aside their hatred and followed Bingshu into the square. All this was seen by Lvu. He looked at Bingshu's back with a hint of fear in his eyes. But he didn't pay too much attention to it. Most of his eyes fell on Fan Zisong beside Wang Yu. In the confrontation, everyone had different expressions, except Fan Zisong, who was expressionless, as if what happened around him had nothing to do with him. It seems that the poisonous spirit-devouring insect in his body has been sealed by Wang Yu, so he won't be affected before the fight. Lvu thought to himself. He had learned the use of the materials on the list from Suli. Today, Suli sent him here to find a chance to seal the poisonous spirit-devouring insect and hold on until they entered the secret realm of shattered spirits to meet Suli. Now it seems that I worried in vain. Even if this guy fights today, he won't die within half a month, which is enough for the master to detoxify him. LVU breathed a sigh of relief and continued to watch. After the people of the three sects sat down, all the nonsense was cancelled because immortal Bingshu was present. The elders of the three sects, who were responsible for the statistics of the Battle of Shattered Spirits, just briefly explained the rules of the first round and directly announced the start. Why can those disciples directly participate in the second round without participating in the first round? That's right. There are only 20 places to enter the secret realm of shattered spirits in our area. Apart from the 15 people of the three sects, only 5 places belong to casual practitioners. It's really too few. Someone couldn't help but sigh when he saw hundreds of casual practitioners fighting in the field, whose cultivation and bone age met the requirements. It's not absolute. Casual practitioners can also get the token of the second round, and as long as they have the strength, can't they challenge the disciples of the sects in the second round? Have you forgotten the rules set by the 25 sects? Those sects absolutely dare not play tricks in the selection battle of the secret realm. Tut tut, do you really take the rules seriously? Are there not many casual practitioners who have challenged the disciples of the sects in the past? None of them had a good ending. Even if they could really defeat the inherited disciples of the sects, they would still be killed after the end of the secret realm. Chapter 362. Whoosh. In the huge square, hundreds of people worked together to set off a tide of spiritual power, which made a slight sound when it touched the tactical matrix barrier, and then was drowned in the earth-shaking battle cries. Go to hell! The black-robed young man with a long sword on his back had a crazy killing intent on his face. Facing the attacks of several cultivators around him, he didn't show any intention of unsheathing the long sword on his back. He just punched out in all directions with his fist. Immediately, a loose cultivator with a weaker cultivation was smashed to pieces, and blood sprayed everywhere. Late stage of Zhuji realm. So strong, he has become stronger again. We are no match for him, run! Everyone was terrified and fled to the outside of the field. As long as they passed through the tactical matrix barrier, they would be regarded as automatically giving up the selection. But at the same time, others were not allowed to attack them, otherwise they would be punished by the law enforcement elders of the three sections. After the crisis was resolved, a strange flush appeared on the black-robed young man's face. His gaze fell on the last cultivator whose body had collapsed, and a cold smile appeared on his face. His figure flashed, and he threw a punch at the last cultivator. Help me! The practitioner looked back and saw the fist crazily enlarging in front of him. He screamed, but he didn't receive any help. His body was smashed into pieces, and only his head fell out of the field. Why is it me? The light in the eyes of the head quickly dimmed, and the vitality disappeared. The surrounding practitioners who were watching the fun immediately flashed far away, looking at the young man in black with horror in their eyes. When the young man in black returned to the field to continue fighting, people gradually began to whisper. Who is he? He looks young, but his cultivation is actually at the late stage of Zhuji realm. He can be a core disciple in an ordinary sect, but he is still a rogue cultivator. As soon as the words came out, someone immediately laughed. You don't even know him. He is Qi Chen. What? He is Qi Chen, the rogue cultivator who got the secret treasure of the ancient sword? Everyone immediately became excited. Some people had heard of Qi Chen, but they had never seen him. They didn't expect to see him today. What a lucky boy! After getting the secret treasure, he has actually cultivated to the late stage of Juji realm. As long as he can come out of the secret realm of shattered spirits, he will definitely be chosen by the 25 sects and have a meteoric rise. The mortality rate in the secret realm of shattered spirits is not low. Let's wait until he comes out of the secret realm of shattered spirits alive. Some people envied him, and some people disdained him. But after today of the selection, the name of Qi Chen would definitely spread throughout the whole Wuyang city. Qi Chen, he's a rare talent. Wang Yu looked at the indifferent young man fighting in the field, and then glanced at Fan Zisong, who was sitting silently beside her. She couldn't help but frown slightly. From love to disgust, sometimes there was no need for anything excessive. Just an opportunity was enough. The face of Danxia Mount should be fought for by an outsider, Yu Lin. At the thought of this, she was as disgusted as eating a fly. She felt more disgusted with Fan Zisong. At this moment, Taoist Bingshu suddenly laughed. This youngster is quite interesting. Elder Qing immediately smiled and said, "Since he has caught your attention, why don't you take him as your disciple?" In the future, before he could finish his words, the smile on immortal Bingshu's face suddenly disappeared. His cold eyes stared at Elder Shangqing. "What does it have to do with you whether I accept a disciple or not?" Elder Qing immediately broke out in a cold sweat. He slapped himself twice and bowed his head. "Forgive me, Tao Master." This old man was rude. Seeing this scene, the inherited disciples of Meng's sect all changed their expressions. One of them even wanted to stand up, but was firmly pressed on the chair by Elder Qing. He couldn't get up or speak. Seeing this scene, immortal Bingshu smiled again, as if nothing had happened. He continued, "When he comes out of the secret realm of shattered spirits, if he can meet the standard in my mind, it's not impossible to take him as my disciple." This time, Elder Qing nodded with a gloomy face, but didn't dare to echo him. Immortal Bingshu is really temperamental as rumored. Wang Yu sat on the side, feeling uneasy as if she was sitting on pins and needles. She couldn't help but feel lucky that she spoke out later than Elder Qing, or she would be the one to lose face now. The battle in the field was still going on, but it had come to an end. The ground was clean, and the corpses of the dead practitioners had been collected and cleaned up, leaving only some bloodstains. Other practitioners who escaped from inside mingled into the crowd of onlookers, waiting for the result unwillingly. The whole area was clearly divided into 7 areas, each occupied by a casual practitioner at the late stage of Juji realm, and they didn't invade each other. The remaining small space was occupied by practitioners who hadn't reached the late stage of Juji realm, and they were still fighting. When the last practitioner with weak cultivation was blasted out of the field, there were only 20 practitioners left in the whole field. The tactical matrix immediately made a buzzing sound, reminding everyone to stop fighting. "It's over?" Not long after the practitioners were confused, an extremely tall elder walked into the field and said loudly, "The first round of selection battle is over, and the 20 people left in the field are the final winners of the first round. Now tell me your names, so that I can arrange tomorrow's selection." As soon as the words came out, the practitioners watching the battle were immediately shocked. "It's really over." There were more than 400 practitioners participating in the competition, but only 20 were chosen. It's terrible to choose 1 out of 20. Looking at the increasingly noisy scene, the tall elder could not help but frown. He ran his genuine chi and shouted loudly, "Be quiet!" Boom! His voice sounded like thunder in the ears. Some of the weaker practitioners were immediately shaken and suffered internal injuries. Blood flowed from their ears, and they retreated in horror. What a profound cultivation! This old man is at least at the peak stage of Juji realm, and he just used a secret skill of sound skill. Which sex elder is he from? He has such a deep foundation. Many people secretly transmitted their voices, but they dared not discuss it aloud. At this time, among the practitioners in the field, a burly young man finally stood up and said, "My name is Su Yuan." With him taking the lead, the following people immediately followed and were recorded in the list by the tall elder. Soon it was the turn of the young man in black. He was expressionless and said coldly, "Qi Chen." Sure enough, it was Qi Chen. There was another uproar in the crowd, but it soon subsided under the deterrence of the elder. The tall elder's eyes stayed on the exposed sword hilt behind him for a moment, and then he recorded his name in the list. He announced, "Today's selection of shattered spirits is over. Come to draw lots on time tomorrow at 7 o'clock for the second round of the selection of shattered spirit. Do you remember?" The 20 people who participated in the battle responded one after another, and then left. The onlookers also gradually dispersed, but they were more and more looking forward to tomorrow's selection. Practitioners who had watched the selection of shattered spirits knew that the first round was just an appetizer, and the second round tomorrow was the real highlight. LVU looked at the direction where the young man in black left, and a slightly meaningful smile appeared on his face. The token of the second round that he gave Suli was exchanged from this guy. He didn't expect that this guy still had the token of the first round. "Qi Chen, it seems a little interesting. Go back and tell the master." Thinking of this, LVU turned around and was about to leave. Suddenly, he stopped and frowned as he looked at the direction where the people of the three sects left. Strange. I always feel something is wrong, but I can't tell what exactly is wrong. Seeing that all the people had left, LVU had to temporarily suppress his doubts, returned to the inn, and presented the recording stone to Suli. The recording stone, although not a particularly precious thing, is rare in Jiuzhou region. It seems that you still have some wealth in addition to the treasure house. Suli weighed the small white stone in her hand and said with a smile. LVU scratched his head, and his face was a little hot. He wanted to take the opportunity to show off and listen to the master's praise, but he didn't expect that Suli recognized the recording stone at a glance. "Master, please have a look. I'll leave first," LVU said, and hurriedly closed the door and left, seeming to be fleeing. Suli shook her head. Although she saw through LVU's intention, she didn't point it out. After all, LVU was so old, and she had to save some face for him. "I have almost sorted out the basic immortal skills I mastered in the past. So, let me see what is worthy of my attention in the first round of selection." She moved her mind, and her psychic awareness immediately explored the recording stone. The so-called recording stone was similar to a video, which could record all the practitioners saw. The recording stone in LVU's hand was just a low-grade one, but it was enough to record what happened in a whole day. Bingshu. Qi Chen. Ancient sword inheritance. The scene of the day flashed in front of her eyes, and Suli gradually frowned. But her eyes did not fall on any of the casual practitioners who participated in the battle, but focused on the face of immortal Bingshu. Strange, why does this person give me a sense of familiarity? Suli was thoughtful, and her knuckles subconsciously tapped the edge of the recording stone. Unfortunately, the recording stone could only record pictures, not pneuma, or she could make some associations. But it doesn't matter. I will see this person tomorrow. Putting away the thought, Suli put away the recording stone and called LVU in. Anyway, LVU was a ghost practitioner in Jindan realm, and he must have his own understanding after watching the battle on the spot. It was no harm for her to listen. After LVU came in, he immediately mentioned the matter of Qi Chen. Then he hesitated for a moment and finally said with a slightly dignified expression, "Master, when I was watching the battle, I always felt something was wrong, but I couldn't tell what it was. Later I came back and thought about it. It was very likely that someone was secretly watching, but I couldn't find it, so I had an uncomfortable intuition. What? Suli raised her eyebrows. Even you couldn't find it. It may also be my illusion. Master, is it possible that your identity? Lvu said, and a trace of worry appeared on his face. As an evildoer, he should not appear in such a messy situation, but he was destined to disobey Su Li's order. It doesn't matter. Chapter 363. What? Lvu asked subconsciously, but Suli didn't answer. She just smiled mysteriously and ordered, "Go ahead. I have not finished my preparation. Call me when the selection begins tomorrow. Don't disturb me." Yes. Seeing that Suli didn't want to tell him, Lvu had no choice but to retreat and continue to wait in the outer room. The room was quiet again. Su Li's clear eyes flashed, and she wiped the universe ring on her left hand with one hand. Immediately, there was a flash of light, and a demon skin bag fell out of it, which contained the poisons collected by Lvu before. Tiandu scorpion, crocodile worm. Su Li arranged the bodies of the poisonous creatures on the ground in front of her according to the order she recited in her mind. If one looked closely, one could see that these dead poisonous creatures were wrapped in a transparent film to prevent the loss of toxicity. When the 21st poisonous animal was placed, Su Li glanced at it with a smile on her face. That's right. The toxicity of the poisons Lvu found is very complete. If nothing goes wrong, I can refine at least 3 bottles of Tianxin poisonous powder. Time is pressing, let's start now. After setting a soundproof tactical matrix, Su Li took a deep breath and became focused. She picked up the first poisonous animal and began to deal with it. Among the various poisons in the cultivation world, the Heaven's Heart poison powder could only be ranked as a second-grade poison. At most, it could only kill a foundation establishment cultivator. However, its refining method could be ranked as a third-grade poison master. Rank 3 corresponds to the Golden Core stage. In addition, among the Grade 2 poisons, there were 2 or 3 poisons that had similar effects as the Sky Heart poison powder. The refining method was much simpler than the Sky Heart poison powder. As long as it was refined by the pseudo-true fire, it would be easy to succeed. As such, in the eyes of ordinary poison masters, Skyheart poison powder was of little value, and no one knew how to concoct it. But for Su Li, who hadn't reached Zhuji realm and couldn't condense the pseudo-genuine fire, the Tianxin poisonous powder was just right. In the dreamland, she spent her entire life researching poisons. If the standards of that life were placed in the cultivation world, although she couldn't reach the realm of a 4th-grade poison master, she was still better than an ordinary 3rd-grade poison master. Time passed slowly. The sun rose in the east and set in the west. When the sun rose again the next day, the entire 5-yang city immediately became even livelier than the day before. Creak, the door of the inner room was pushed open. Lvu, who was still counting the time with his eyes closed, immediately woke up and turned around. He was deeply surprised. At this moment, Su Li had changed into a set of gray robe that casual practitioners often wore, which covered her thin figure. It was faintly visible that she was wearing a black close-fitting shirt that was convenient for movement. In order not to attract attention, it was not unusual to dress like this. Lvu was not surprised by this, but by the temperament Su Li exuded from inside out. The cold aura that was naturally emitted seemed to be mixed with the vicissitudes of life and silence that he could not understand. No one would have thought that the true face of the woman in front of him was a little girl who was not even 15 years old. Even Lvu couldn't help but have a trace of doubt at this moment. He had all kinds of unrealistic speculations about Su Li's origin. "What are you waiting for?" The emotionless voice came, and Lvu suddenly woke up. He hurriedly opened the door, bowed respectfully, and followed Su Li out of the guest room like an old butler. Just at this moment, the door of the heavenly guest room opposite was also opened, and a young man in black with a long sword on his back walked out. He glanced at Su Li and Lvu, and went straight downstairs without stopping. "Master, that is Qi Chen. He has a heavenly guest room and 2 tokens in his hands. This guy is more extraordinary than I thought." Lvu was surprised for a moment, and then transmitted the sound. Su Li's eyes flashed. "Let's go down too. Why didn't we see people of Huajian sect?" "Master, Huajian sect and the other 2 sects have special strongholds in Wuyang town, so they don't need to live in the inn." Su Li suddenly understood and nodded. "Let's go directly to the square." Soon, Su Li and Lvu came to the outside of the square, and it was very close to the hour of the morning. As the selection battle was about to begin, the periphery of the square was crowded and noisy. But different from yesterday, there was an empty passage in front of the periphery of the square, which could only allow one person to pass through. At the door of the passage, there were 2 elders with profound breaths, and there was a sign, "Exhibition Entrance," next to it. "Master, you can go in from there with the token, and I will watch outside. If you have any instructions, just transmit the sound to me directly." Su Li responded, and saw Qi Chen with a cold face walk in after passing the elder's examination. "It's almost time." Without hesitation, Su Li walked to the entrance under the surprised and doubtful eyes of the surrounding practitioners, and silently handed out the token. The elder guarding the gate glanced at Su Li in surprise. After checking the authenticity of the token, he nodded and said, "The token is real. Let's go." "Thank you, elder." Su Li bowed slightly, but there was not much expression on her face. Then she stepped into the passage. As soon as she left, the noise around became louder. "That is the token of the second round. A female casual practitioner? There is a female casual practitioner participating in the selection of shattered spirits this time. It's so strange." A female casual practitioner? I haven't seen one for hundreds of years. I haven't seen one for a short time because I haven't practiced for a long time. That female practitioner is good-looking, but it's a pity that she is too thin. It seems that her cultivation is not so good, far worse than the first disciple of Danxia Mount of Huajian sect. The onlookers discussed heatedly. In the cultivation world, there had always been more men than women. Female cultivators were always in a weak position, especially among the rogue cultivators. There were very few female cultivators who could survive on their own. Most of them would attach themselves to the strong and become a good-looking but useless vase. In sects, this situation was slightly better. The more powerful the sect was, the more equal the status of men and women were. For example, sects such as Yushu sect and Zihan sect would set up the positions of holy sons and holy virgins to make them the face of the sect. 1,000 years ago, both Su Li and Zihan sect's face, Su Zipei, were female practitioners. Standing in the crowd, Lvu couldn't help but sneer in his heart when he heard these remarks. How could these people at the bottom of the cultivation circle know the strength of his master? When Su Li came to the square through the passage, the noise in her ears was much lower. She was already inside the tactical matrix of the venue, which isolated most of the noise. She glanced around and immediately saw 20 high arenas standing in the center of the tactical matrix. At this moment, the arena battle hadn't started yet, so there was no one on it. But there were 3 large seats outside the tactical matrix directly opposite, which were obviously the seats of the 3 sections. What? Immortal Bingshu didn't come yesterday? Su Li frowned when she saw the most prominent seat was empty. Without him, she couldn't verify her thoughts. She could only participate in the secret realm of shattered spirits first. While Su Li was observing the colleagues around her, there was another person who was paying attention to her. It's her. Qi Chen, who was resting quietly on the edge of the tactical matrix, glanced at Su Li and withdrew his gaze. He was vigilant. Although he was calm when he met Su Li in the morning, his heart was not calm at all. Lvu didn't disguise himself, and he had a good memory. He immediately recognized that this person was the old ancestor of Jindan realm who exchanged his second round token. Is she the descendant of the old ancestor of Jindan realm? Qi Chen thought of Lvu's servile appearance in the morning, and immediately denied the idea in his heart. At the same time, he was a little confused. If this girl really had a powerful background, why did she come to such a small place to compete for the place to enter the secret realm of shattered spirits? It should be known that the powerful sects didn't need to decide the place through the selection of shattered spirit. For example, the inherited disciples of the 25 sects could easily get the place to enter the secret realm as long as they could get the approval of the elders in the sect. Obviously, he couldn't figure out Su Li's behavior. Anyway, this girl has an old ancestor of Jindan realm behind her. I can't offend her unless I have to. Qi Chen thought so and glanced at the practitioners around him. He couldn't help but smile vaguely. He was the only one who knew this information. In the blink of an eye, it was time. The two gatekeeping elders checked the time and immediately stopped the layout of the passage. They flew into the tactical matrix to maintain the operation of the tactical matrix. It's time. The selection of shattered spirits is about to begin. Those who haven't arrived now will be regarded as giving up automatically. The tall elder yesterday flashed out, and his voice spread throughout the square. The two practitioners outside the square who couldn't catch up were full of unwillingness, but they didn't dare to go against the three sections. They could only mix with the onlookers and wait for the result of the selection battle. Seeing that no one had any objection, the tall elder was relieved. He glanced at the 33 casual practitioners in the tactical matrix and said loudly, "Now, the inherited disciples of Huajian sect, Meng sect, and Yuling sect enter the field." As soon as the words came out, all the inherited disciples sitting in the seats of the three sects immediately stood up at the same time and turned into streams of light falling into the tactical matrix. The powerful fluctuation immediately caused many people to exclaim, and the casual practitioners in the tactical matrix all showed a dignified expression. There were 15 inherited disciples of the three sects, and the lowest one was in the late stage of Zhuji realm. Their strength was much stronger than that of the mixed casual practitioners. Su Li stood in the corner on the edge of the tactical matrix and looked at Fan Zisong, who fell into the field with a cold and lonely expression. These days, he had experienced a change of heart. His temperament was a little less sunny than before, but a little more profound. Su Li sensed the looming seal in his body and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Then, her eyes fell on Yulin beside him. Seeing the complacency flashing in her eyes from time to time, her lips immediately curved coldly. The rules of the second round of the selection battle of shattered spirits are very simple. There are 20 platforms in this tactical matrix, and each platform represents a place. The arena battle will last for 3 days. As long as you can still stand on the platform on the last day of the end of the battle, you can get a place. The tall elder's short words revealed the cruel and real rules of the cultivation circle. The strongest was respected. Chapter 364. As soon as the tall elder finished his words, 15 inherited disciples of the three sects flew directly to the high platform and occupied a position. No one fell behind. The rest of the casual practitioners looked a little gloomy. After a moment of hesitation, they turned to fight for the other 5 high platforms. This was the home ground of the 3 sections. How dare they compete? Get out of here! The place is mine. Get out of here. How dare you compete with me? You're courting death. One practitioner after another fell down. Some were seriously injured, and some directly turned into corpses and fell to the ground, splashing pools of blood. Su stood still and looked coldly at the 5 lively high platforms. There were at least 8 people who didn't move like her. They rushed to occupy the high platforms on the first day, which could only be said to be brainless. The selection battle would last for 3 whole days, and only those who occupied the high platform at the very last moment would be able to obtain a spot. Unless they had absolute confidence in their own strength and were able to intimidate others like the disciples of the 3 sects, they would only be asking for trouble if they went up at this time. However, my goal is different from theirs. Su slowly turned her eyes and saw Yulin on the high platform with a cold expression and a sure victory. At this moment, Yulin took out a chair from the universe ring and sat on the high platform. The bloody scene on the 5 high platforms was reflected in her eyes. Then she looked at Fan Zisong, who didn't move, and slightly raised the corner of her mouth. A small sect is not even qualified to carry shoes for my great-grandfather. How dare you plot against me? Why don't you take a look at yourself? How can you country bumpkins compare to my methods? Looking at Yulin's proud back, Fan Zisong gradually narrowed his eyes and heard Wang Yu's urging. Apprentice, do it. What are you waiting for? Have you forgotten the promise you made in front of me? I didn't expect that I made a mistake and accepted an apprentice who was afraid of death. I raised you for hundreds of years in vain. As time went by, Wang Yu's words became more and more unpleasant. Fan Zisong remained unmoved, but his heart completely sank. Before, he still had a glimmer of luck. Maybe the master was not as bad as he thought. It was just a moment of negligence that he misunderstood. But now there was no more luck. Fairy Red Jade, why do you look so pale? Elder Qing's voice suddenly sounded. Hong Yu, who had been transmitting her voice, was startled, but she maintained her composure. She turned her head and smiled. It's nothing. I was just thinking about cultivation. Sorry for making Elder Qing worry. That's good. Elder Qing chuckled, but he sneered in his heart. He was eager for Wang Yu's accident to reduce Hua Jian's sect's combat power. How could he really worry about her? Two days and 2 nights later, the fluctuations of spiritual energy gradually weakened, and there were less than 3 people left on each of the 5 high platforms. All of them were drenched in blood, their spiritual energy exhausted, and they were struggling at death's door. However, there wasn't the slightest trace of retreat in their eyes. Instead, there was only madness and killing intent. It was a killing frenzy. He had lost his mind. The 8 people who had yet to make a move shook their heads, and each chose their favorite platform to fly up. Qi Chen was one of them. Die! Die! The quota is mine. As soon as he landed on the edge of the high platform, Qi Chen was attacked by the 3 cultivators together, but the strength of the attack was not as strong as that of a qi refining cultivator. He shook his head slightly, with no pity on his face. He waved his hand and said coldly, "Go down?" Ah! The 3 people were not Qi Chen's opponents, and they were in poor condition, so they were directly swept off the high platform by Qi Chen. They screamed and fell to the ground and couldn't get up. However, they didn't die. For such idiots, he didn't want to kill them and bring trouble to himself. At this moment, a skinny young man with a feminine face suddenly appeared on the high platform and stood opposite to Qi Chen. He said with a sinister smile, "Fellow practitioner Qi Chen, I've heard a lot about you. I wonder if you can give me the ancient sword on your back?" Sure enough, he came for his sword. Qi Chen narrowed his eyes, and his expression gradually tightened. This person was one of the extraordinary people who won yesterday's scuffle. He remembered that his name was Shiyuan. Fellow practitioner Shiyuan. Qi Chen was about to speak, but suddenly there was an exclamation from the crowd around him. He and Shiyuan couldn't help but be stunned, and subconsciously looked around to see if there was anything surprising. This made Qi Chen's face change slightly, and he cried in his heart. How could it be her? On the high platform of the three sects, Yulin looked incredulously at the skinny woman who suddenly appeared in front of her, and wondered, You want to challenge me? Did you come to the wrong high platform? A smile appeared on Su Li's indifferent face. It can't be wrong. It's you. As soon as this was said, the whole square immediately burst into a greater uproar. It was shocking enough that a casual practitioner challenged an inherited disciple of a sect, not to mention that the challenger and the challenged practitioner were both female practitioners. Seeing Su Li's smile, Yulin immediately felt humiliated. She was so angry that she laughed. I have seen a lot of people like you. Do you want to become famous after one fight to attract the attention of the sect? Unfortunately, you found the wrong person. If you choose him, you may have a chance. But you want to step on me? In your dream. Su Li glanced at Fan Zisong, who was pointed at, and smiled more. It turns out that the first disciple of Danxia Mount of Huajian sect defeats the enemy by talking? I have really learned something new. Hearing this, Yulin's pretty face was immediately covered with frost. You're courting death. She used all her strength in anger, and even used the means of a poison master. She had never been humiliated like this before. The bitch in front of her must die. Su Li dodged the palm wind easily, but she didn't stop talking. She continued, Oh, is this the temperament of the first disciple of Danxia Mount? She is worse than a 3-year-old child. Seeing that she dodged the attack so easily, the practitioners, who were still worried about Su Li, were surprised at the same time, and immediately changed into a look of exuberant interest. This mysterious female practitioner seems to be no worse than Fairy Yulin. That's right. That female practitioner is not an idiot. Why would she go up to die? Nonsense. I just heard you say that the female practitioner is doomed. You must have heard it wrong. The audience became lively again, and everyone was paying attention to the development of Yulin on the high platform. If the mysterious female casual practitioner won, it would be a rare story. Fan Zisong frowned and looked at Yulin, who was attacking crazily on the high platform. He was just about to get up and fly over to challenge Yulin to fulfill his promise, but this woman challenged Yulin one step ahead of him. Was it a coincidence or, boy, you are lucky. This female casual practitioner has a mysterious origin, and even I can't see through her. Yulin is definitely not her opponent. You can continue to seal your cultivation, and it is absolutely no problem for you to reach the secret realm of shattered spirits. The elder with the jade token on his chest transmitted the sound in silence. Fan Zisong nodded imperceptibly, but his eyes were fixed on Su Li. He always felt that things were not as simple as the mysterious elder thought. Too weak. As the first disciple of Danxia Mount, your cultivation is so weak. Are you really fishing for fame? Shut up. Yulin's delicate face was full of ferocity at the moment. This woman's body was like a catkin, and she couldn't touch it at all. She had been talking since the beginning of the battle, and her words were so harsh that her lungs were about to explode. Swish. She suddenly stopped, took a deep breath, and barely calmed down. She stared at Su Li with eyes full of killing intent. You are a coward who only knows how to hide. How dare you say that to me? Do you dare to take a blow from me? Su Li raised her eyebrows and still smiled, coincidentally. I am also tired of hiding. As you wish. After saying that, she stretched out her slender and white palms from the black robe, and pressed on Yulin's chest like a phantom. So fast I can't hide. Yulin's face changed slightly, and she immediately gritted her teeth. She ran the poisonous skill in her body, and the palms hidden in her sleeves turned dark. Go to hell. Boom! The two palms collided, and immediately set off a violent fluctuation of spiritual power. Even the tactical matrix shield rippled. The elder who was responsible for maintaining the tactical matrix changed his face slightly, and immediately increased the input of spiritual power to maintain the stability of the tactical matrix. Ah! With a scream, a black shadow shot out of the high platform and smashed into the ground like a cannonball. Who lost? Who is it? Everyone stared at the ground, and even Wang Yu and Elder Qing couldn't help but stand up, with a surprised look on their faces. After a while, the smoke and dust on the high platform finally dissipated, and Su Li showed up. She still had a faint smile on her face, but now her smile made many people feel a chill in their hearts. Unscathed. This woman was unscathed, and even her hair and clothes were not messed up. This was a female practitioner who was much more powerful than Yu Lin. Cough, cough, cough. Yu Lin, who was lying in the human-shaped pit, coughed violently. Immediately, everyone saw Yu Lin climb out with her face covered with dirt. Before she stood up, she couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood, and her pneuma weakened. Her eyes were full of hatred. Bearing the stares of the surrounding people, she grasped the dirt tightly, but dared not look up again. Instead, she took out an elixir from the universe ring and stuffed it into her mouth to heal. She was too powerful. If she hadn't taken back some strength at the last moment, she would probably have died. You wait and see. If you don't kill me now, you will die when you enter the secret realm of shattered spirits. A strong ruthlessness flashed in Yu Lin's eyes, and she entered the state of meditation. The selection was not over yet. As long as she could recover half of her strength, she still had a chance to enter the secret realm. Su Li didn't look at Yu Lin, but directly sat down in Yu Lin's original position. The other 13 people of the other sex all showed fear in their eyes, but didn't take any action. They were sure to get the places, and Yu Lin's life and death had nothing to do with them. As for Hua Jian's sect, Yu Lin was originally an outsider, and Wang Yu was too happy to seek justice for her. But she still had to pretend to be polite. After glancing at Elder Qing, she pretended to be helpless and said, "I didn't expect this casual practitioner to have some means. Yu Lin is no match for her, and she can only blame her bad luck." Elder Qing nodded with a smile. Indeed, the rules of the 25 sects can't be broken. He was really happy this time. Hua Jian's sect had one less person. If they met in the secret realm of shattered spirits, the disciples of Meng's sect would definitely have the upper hand. Besides, this woman was a casual practitioner, and she didn't belong to any sect. Chapter 365. After the situation calmed down, the high platforms of the 3 sects became quiet again. 8 practitioners rejoined the remaining 5 high platforms, and the competition became fierce again. However, for the practitioners who had just watched the drama, the following battles became a little boring. Many people even left and didn't want to wait for the final result. Su Li sat quietly on the high platform, and her attention fell on Qi Chen's high platform. Although Shi Yuan was powerful, he was at the same level as Qi Chen. Without using his trump card, no one could defeat the other. In the end, Shi Yuan had no choice but to occupy another high platform. Just now, Yu Lin, who had recovered from her injury, also occupied one of the individual cultivators' high platforms. Although the individual cultivator who originally occupied that platform cursed, he had no choice but to jump off the high platform after the battle was fruitless. Time flew, and it was night in the blink of an eye. Although it was not midnight yet, there was no change in the people on the high platforms, because all the living people except those on the high platforms had left the tactical matrix. The selection battle is over in advance. The tall elder reappeared, and his rumbling voice spread throughout the square. He glanced over the 20 high platforms, and stayed on the high platform where Su Li was for a moment. Then he waved his hand and threw out 20 jade talismans in the shape of tokens, suspending them in front of the 20 people. He said in a low voice, "Refine this token." Everyone immediately began to refine it. Su Li took the jade talisman and poured her spiritual power into it. Soon, she sensed a trace of connection with the jade talisman and its various functions. It was a treasure to pass through the secret realm of shattered spirits, and it was also a means for the 25 sects to monitor the practitioners in case the precious treasures fell into the hands of casual practitioners. Of course, the second function would not be shown on the jade talisman. Otherwise, no casual practitioner would be willing to explore the secret realm. Seeing that everyone had finished refining, the tall elder nodded with satisfaction. He waved his hand and threw out a delicate spiritual boat the size of a palm. It grew to the size of an attic in the wind, causing the practitioners below to exclaim, "This is a middle-grade flying magic weapon. I have seen it once from a distance. Only the big sects have it. Who on earth is this elder? He is definitely not a member of the 3 sects." The tall elder turned a deaf ear to the discussion below and said loudly, "All of you, now leave with me to the entrance of the secret realm of shattered spirits." A look of excitement flashed across the faces of the rogue cultivators who had never been on a spirit boat before. They flew up without hesitation. Although the true disciples of the 3 sects were also a little curious, they did not show it so obviously. "Humph, a bunch of ignorant bumpkins." Yulin snorted coldly and looked back at Su Li, who was still in the same place. She flew into the spirit boat first, regardless of the ugly faces of other inherited disciples. "Master, be careful." LVU's voice came into her ears. Su Li inadvertently glanced at the green-robed elder standing in the crowd, and then nodded imperceptibly. She got up and landed on the deck of the spiritual boat. Seeing that everyone was here, the tall elder immediately drove the spiritual boat away without looking at Wang Yu and others. "The elders of the 25 sects are still so arrogant," Elder Qing sighed, and there was also a touch of envy in Wang Yu's eyes. If they stayed in a small sect, they would never be able to break through to Yuanying realm. Only by staying in a big sect could they go far on the road of cultivation. Thinking of this, Wang Yu sighed helplessly in her heart. Because of Yulin, she had the opportunity to enter Zihan's school. However, she was blinded by greed and dissatisfied with the reward, which displeased Yulin's grandfather. Yulin's grandfather forced Yulin to enter the sect, and she didn't get anything in return. Thinking of it now, she regretted it. Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in the world. In the high sky, a spiritual boat was flying fast. On the deck of the spiritual boat, 20 young practitioners who were about to enter the secret realm of shattered spirits occupied their own areas, except for the disciples of the sections. But the 5 disciples of Huajian's sect were in a different situation. In the corner of the spiritual boat, Yulin was surrounded by the 3 inherited disciples of Fujian Mount and Qinghua Mount. They laughed from time to time, as if they were not going to the secret realm of shattered spirits for adventure, but for sightseeing. "Junior sister apprentice Lin, don't worry. After entering the secret realm, the 3 of us will protect you well. Yes, senior fellow apprentices will never let you get hurt." Yulin, who had cleaned herself up, had returned to her usual beauty. Every frown and smile exuded charm, which made the 3 people around her swayed and intoxicated. Yulin said in a soft voice, "Thank you for your care. I thought that the disciples of Huajian's sect were very indifferent, but I didn't expect you to be so warm-hearted. I'm really touched." Her appearance was the best among the female disciples of Huajian's sect. Now when she acted coquettishly, she immediately fascinated the other 3. Yulin looked weak, but her heart was cold and emotionless. She had not recovered from her injury, so she naturally needed to find some guards. Fortunately, these inherited disciples of Hua Jian's sect were easy to deceive. Turning her eyes, her gaze fell on Su Li, who closed her eyes and rested not far away. Her eyes were cold and insidious, as if she was looking at a dead person. Even if I can't poison you to death, you can never escape from the pursuit of Zihan's sect. At this moment, all her hatred had been transferred to Su Li. Even Fan Zisong, who had always been regarded as a thorn in her side, was not taken seriously by her at this moment. A little further away from Yu Lin and the other three, Fan Zisong leaned against the edge of the spiritual boat alone. Seeing this scene, he could not hide his worry in his eyes. This woman took the thunder for me. No, I have to remind her. Seeing Su Li closed her eyes and put on her clothes, Fan Zisong gritted his teeth, stood up and sat beside Su Li. After hesitating for a moment, he transmitted the sound. Fellow practitioner, Su Li opened her eyes and turned her eyes. Her emotionless eyes fell on Fan Zisong, which made the latter feel creepy. What's the matter? Her voice was as cold as spring water, which made Fan Zisong nervous. He took a breath and continued to transmit the sound. When you go to the secret realm of shattered spirits, you must be careful of Yu Lin's revenge. Yu Lin's grandfather is an elder of Zihan's sect. If she sends a message to Zihan's sect, people of Zihan's sect may attack you in the secret realm. And the other three in my sect seem to be bewitched. I'm afraid. I got it. Su Li interrupted Fan Zisong coldly. She got up and left to find another place to sit down. Fan Zisong was stunned for a moment. Then he shook his head helplessly and smiled bitterly in his heart. Her reaction? He was regarded as a lecher by this woman. She probably didn't take his words seriously. Unfortunately, I can't protect myself. I don't know whether she can escape from Yu Lin's cruelty. After Su Li sat down again, she didn't look at Fan Zisong, but she frowned in her heart. She wanted to attract Yu Lin's attention to herself and let Fan Zisong get out of danger temporarily. But she didn't expect that Fan Zisong would come to remind her kindly. Just now, she saw Yu Lin looked at Fan Zisong with resentment again. She knew that the previous arrangement was in vain. Forget it. Let it be in vain. After entering the secret realm, I will find senior fellow apprentice as soon as possible. Anyway, the poisonous spirit-devouring insect in his body should be removed. Without much hesitation, Su Li glanced at Fan Zisong, who dared not come over again, and became silent again. Half a day later, a round mountain peak made of green mountain stones came into sight. From a distance, it looked like a green cloud falling on the ground. Green water and Cloud Mountain, the entrance of the secret realm of shattered spirits. Someone recognized the terrain and exclaimed, which immediately attracted many people's attention. The spiritual boat fell quickly, and the green water and Cloud Mountain enlarged rapidly. In a blink of an eye, it was verdant. They entered the green water and Cloud Mountain. Whoosh! After the spiritual boat swept over a mountain peak, a giant pit with a flat bottom appeared in front of everyone. It was still surrounded by mountain stones, forming a perfect circle. The bottom of the pit was brightly lit, as if it was daytime. From the spirit boat, one could vaguely see the figures of people moving on the giant platform in the pit, and in the center of the platform, there was a round arch that was dozens of feet high, rippling inside, reflecting a completely different scene from the outside world. Seeing such a spectacular scene, several casual practitioners who had never been here couldn't help but exclaim, "Everything in the world is so wonderful that such a natural spectacle can appear. Just seeing the entrance of the secret realm makes the trip worthwhile." Su Li held the edge of the spiritual boat, with a faint fluctuation in her eyes. This scene was similar to the scene when she opened the reincarnation mirror in the past. But now the people below were all juniors in Zhuji realm, while the top talents of the entire Jiuzhou region gathered there at that time. She slowly closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she suddenly opened her eyes, a frightening light flashed. In this life, I won't be wrong again. Those who owed me back then, no matter who it was, I will make them pay for this debt without leaving a single cent behind. Now, let's start from the secret realm of shattered spirits. Boom! The spirit boat crashed down and stopped at the edge of the ring-shaped rock. The tall elder stood straight and looked at the scene under the rock. A trace of nostalgia flashed across his face, and he said indifferently, "Let's talk about the past." After passing through the tactical matrix and landing on the platform below, you just need to wait for the secret realm. Only practitioners whose bone age is less than 800 years can pass through the tactical matrix. I don't need to remind you. You should know this. Now go down. As soon as the tall elder finished his words, someone couldn't wait to pass through the tactical matrix. Suli walked slowly at the end. After Fan Zisong also landed, she was ready to pass through the tactical matrix. But at this moment, the tall elder suddenly shot a jade rune in his hand. If you can come out of the secret realm of shattered spirits alive, you can join our Leiyu sect with this rune and enjoy the treatment of an inner branch disciple. As for casual practitioners, there is no way out. Then, he flashed away without waiting for Su Li's answer. Leiyu sect, which ranks 13th among the 25 sects, Su Li smiled slightly. After looking at the jade rune, she put it away directly. She tiptoed and landed like a willow catkin. After she left, a light flashed, and the tall elder reappeared, frowning. Hearing the name of our Leiyu sect, does this woman really not care, or is she ignorant? After thinking for a while, he shook his head and left. Chapter 366. Su Li floated to the ground and glanced around calmly. At the entrance of the vast secret realm, there were already thousands of qualified practitioners waiting here. Most of the practitioners came in groups of 3 or 5, and whispered incessantly. Glancing at Fan Zisong, Yu Lin and others not far away from her, Su Li kept silent and continued to wait. She was at the outermost edge of the platform, and the closer to the gate of the secret realm, the higher the status of practitioners. At this moment, a slightly abrupt voice came into her ears. "Look, the young man closest to the gate of the secret realm is Bei Xiao Liang." Following this low exclamation, everyone in the surroundings followed his gaze and looked over. Then, an even louder discussion broke out. "It's really him, the inherited disciple of Yushu sect who has the most potential to become the Holy Sun. Yes, he has only cultivated for 600 years, so he can enter the secret realm of shattered spirits. It is said that this evildoer can escape unscathed from an old ancestor of Jindan realm with his cultivation at the peak of Zhuji realm. Who among his peers can be his opponent? I'm afraid only Chun Xianghan of Zihan sect can fight against him. It's a pity that Chun Xianghan has cultivated for more than 1,000 years and can't enter the secret realm. She is still inferior to Bei Xiaoliang." The discussion grew louder, and soon spread to where Bei Xiaoliang was. "Senior fellow apprentice, listen, they are all talking about you." The other inherited disciples of Yushu sect looked at Bei Xiaoliang with admiration in their eyes. Some of them might be older than Bei Xiaoliang, but the cultivation circle respected the strong. Bei Xiaoliang was so powerful that he was naturally respected by all inherited disciples of Yushu sect. Bei Xiaoliang looked at the gate of the secret realm without any change in his expression, as if the discussion around him didn't affect him at all. The secret realm of shattered spirits is about to open. Don't be impatient and echo the crowd. When his voice came out, all the disciples of Yushu sect from different peaks responded respectfully and calmed down together. Seeing this scene, Su Li's eyes flashed a trace of softness. She used to be admired by thousands of people and loved by all disciples of Yushu sect, just like Bei Xiaoliang. Is Bei Xiaoliang a disciple of my master? Su Li was thoughtful. She had been in the cultivation circle for more than 1,200 years, including the time she spent in the reincarnation mirror. Bei Xiaoliang was only over 600 years old, and all the other disciples were less than 800 years old. Naturally, she didn't know them. Well, I can't return to Yushu sect in a short time. It's no use to think too much. Well, I can't return to Yushu sect in a short time. But at this moment, Bei Xiaoliang frowned and turned to look in the direction of Su Li, but he found nothing. Someone noticed Bei Xiao and asked. Someone. And Liang's and Bei Xiaoliang. Bei Xiaoliang shook his head and returned to his original appearance, but there was a trace of doubt in his heart. Sect, Li sect disciples of sect. And. The competition in the big sects was fierce and cruel. Ever since he started his cultivation, he had encountered countless dangers, but he had always relied on his innate intuition to escape. Now that his intuition had appeared again, he could not ignore it. Sect, Su is Li among them. Li of sect and. Bei Xiaoliang was silent, but there was a slight expectation in his eyes. He thought that this trip to the secret realm of shattered spirits would be as boring as last time. Now it seemed that he might gain a lot. At the same time, Yulin, who was also waiting in the periphery area, took back the carrier rune in her hand. She couldn't hide the joy in her eyes. She turned to look at Su Li and sneered. I got in touch. B*tch you wait and see. The secret realm of shattered spirits will be your burial place. Time passed by slowly. One day was nothing for practitioners. By the next morning, the last spiritual boat arrived, and all the 5,000 practitioners selected from the Jiuzhou region had arrived. As the last practitioner passed through the tactical matrix and landed on the platform, the gate of the secret realm moved immediately. The bright rings around it rotated slowly, and then turned into phantoms that couldn't be seen clearly after a few seconds. The calm ripples turned into a whirlpool with a slight suction. The secret realm is open. Before the practitioner who had been here more than once finished his words, Bei Xiaoliang jumped into it and disappeared. With him taking the lead, the rest of the disciples didn't hesitate and poured into it one after another. The practitioners on the platform decreased rapidly, and soon it was the turn of the practitioners from the outer dimension. Let's go. Yulin glanced at Su Li and stepped into it with the 3 people of Huajian sect. Su Li still stood still. Seeing this, Fan Zisong had to go first. Just when half of his body was about to disappear into the whirlpool, Su Li suddenly moved. She stretched out her fingers and flicked, and a transparent mark fell into the back of Fan Zisong's neck. Then she disappeared into the whirlpool. Sensing a trace of the vague mark, Su Li was slightly relieved. She succeeded. The fluctuation of the whirlpool could perfectly cover the tracing mark she planted. Glancing at the empty surroundings, Su Li didn't hesitate and flashed into the whirlpool. After a short period of darkness, the scene changed. Su Li opened her eyes and found herself in an empty and lonely wasteland. She couldn't see anyone as far as she could see. How could I be transmitted to this place in Jituyuan? Su Li frowned. Without saying anything, she identified the direction and flew quickly. Jituyuan was the most barren place in the entire secret realm of shattered spirit. There was basically no chance. It was very far from the converging place of Nimbus that she was going to this time. Fortunately, the secret realm of shattered spirits would be open for 2 months. As long as she could get there and spend about 7 days to absorb Nimbus, she could reach the 12th hurdle of Lianqi realm. She had enough time to hurry. 3 days later, Su Li just left the area of Jituyuan. Suddenly, her heart moved, and the pneuma of the tracing mark became extremely clear. Fan Zisong is not far from me. To avoid trouble, I should resolve the poisonous spirit-devouring insect on him first. Thinking of this, she slightly adjusted the direction and continued to rush. At the same time, in the dark and dense forest, Fan Zisong leaned against a giant tree with a pool of blood on the ground. He wiped the remaining blood on the corner of his mouth and stared at the three people in front of him with a gloomy face. Do you really want to listen to Yulin's nonsense? Are you trying to kill me? The tall and thin young man snorted coldly. Fan Zisong, don't play tricks on me. You are just a servant of Mount Head, not even an inherited disciple. How can you be regarded as a fellow disciple of our sect? Right. Another inherited disciple of Qinghua Mount stood out and sneered. I have heard from junior sister apprentice Yulin that you are a lowly servant. Just because Mount Head likes you, you embezzled junior sister apprentices practicing resources openly and secretly. It is unforgivable. Even if you escape today, we will report to Master Uncle and punish you severely after we get out. Fan Zisong was silent. These people had been completely fascinated by Yulin, and they wouldn't listen to anything he said. So, he didn't need to care about the old friendship. Swish. With a thought, the flying sword was unsheathed and floated in front of him, pointing at the three people with cold light. The three people of Hua Jian's sect were immediately angry. How dare you take the initiative to attack us? You are courting death. Fan Zisong looked cold, without any affection for fellow disciples. Just when the four flying swords were about to collide, suddenly, boom! A terrifying spiritual pressure poured down without warning. A ferocious human face suddenly appeared at the root of the giant tree that Fan Zisong was leaning against. The hanging branches turned into sharp swords in the blink of an eye, penetrating the chests of the three people, leaving a basin-sized bloody hole. Help me! The young man was full of horror. He only uttered 2 words, and then his eyes dimmed quickly. He fell to the ground without any vitality. The other 2 didn't even have a last word. Ding! Clang! The 3 flying swords fell to the ground and collided with each other, making 2 crisp sounds, which seemed more terrifying in the quiet forest. What's going on? Fan Zisong's pupils shrank suddenly. He leaned against the giant tree and didn't see the human face, nor did he see what penetrated the bodies of the 3 people. I can't stay here for a long time. I have to leave first. Fan Zisong focused his mind and didn't have time to care about the treasures on the corpses of the 3 people. He drove the flying sword to escape without saying a word. Shortly after he left, the human face on the giant tree reappeared, but it was not as ferocious as before. Instead, there was an indescribable calmness. Since it is your blood that awakens me, I will spare your life this time. These 3 corpses can help me recover a little, and my roots can continue to extend. There was a low murmur in the nothingness, and the ground where the corpses were immediately made a strange grumbling sound. Then it turned into a small green swamp and sank the corpses into the ground. In the blink of an eye, the corpses were restored without any trace. A few hours later, Fan Zisong came out from the side of the dense forest. Looking at the empty green plain, he breathed a sigh of relief, but there was still a trace of fear in his eyes. Although he didn't know why the existence in the dark didn't hurt him, the situation just now was absolutely life-threatening and very dangerous. What is this place? It's a pity that the map of the secret realm, mastered by Hua Jian's sect, only occupies a small part. This place is obviously not in the map description. Looking at the dense forest behind him, Fan Zisong took a breath, hesitated for a moment, and sat in meditation to recover. But he suddenly woke up after a moment of meditation, and his face looked terrible. His speed of recovering genuine qi slowed down. After hesitating for a moment, Fan Zisong stretched out his right hand and found that the whole palm had become dark, and something could be vaguely seen wriggling in it. But as long as he tried to force this thing out, it would quickly become silent again, and he couldn't sense it. Boy, don't try to recover genuine qi. When you fought with your 3 companions just now, the poisonous spirit-devouring insect has completely awakened. At least 30% of the nimbus you refined into your body has been swallowed by the poisonous spirit-devouring insect. If you go on like this, you will only speed up your death. Fan Zisong fell silent. He was chased by the three people all the way, and he had no way to escape. Now he survived. But the genuine qi in his body was less than 10%. How could he continue in the secret realm of shattered spirits if he didn't recover? Wait for death. Fan Zisong suddenly smiled and transmitted the sound. Senior, although my cultivation is low, I don't want to wait for death unwillingly. Just let me be willful for once. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.